Let's begin at the beginning.
Good evening. Depending on which way you want to look at it, the hour has arrived. It is, on my watch, it says 7:04, somewhere almost 7:05.
7:06.
It's time to take a quorum count. Precinct 1. 9. I also got a broken pencil. Precinct 1. Precinct 1 has 10. Precinct 2, Mr. Delinsky. 12, sir. Precinct 2 has 12. Precinct 3, 10. He is 10. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 17. Congratulations. Precinct 5, Mr. Cole. Precinct 5 has 10. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 17. Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is 10. Precinct 8. How many? 6. What does that have? A quorum is 75. There are 92 present. You'll please rise and join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Joanne McAvoy Blomstrom, who served both on the school committee, Board of Selectmen, and very, very active in several things with the town. Also a 1946 graduate, Stoughton High School, and the daughter of one of my predecessors, Ray McAvoy, who was also the veterans agent, so from a long line of dedicated service. At this time, I'd like to introduce a Congressman, Stephen Lynch. Run it. A few minutes is yours.
Thank you. Should I speak from here or down there, Howard?
Well, this is
All right.
easier.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Howard. Good evening, everyone. Normally, during the week, I'm in Washington, D.C., but fortunately, they let us out on parole for the week, and I have an opportunity briefly to share with you some of the updates from Washington, D.C., and I appreciate, Howard, your kindness and courtesy in allowing me to address town meeting. I know I've seen the warrant, and I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you, so I'll try to be brief. There is some reason for optimism in the last 5 weeks in Washington. There have been a series of very major bills that have gone through and been passed and signed by the President. We passed the Department of Homeland Security bill with a combination of Republicans and Democrats. There weren't enough Republicans to support it. We didn't have unanimity among Democrats either, but by going back and forth and amending the bill between Democrats and Republicans, like you're supposed to, we came up with a good Department of Homeland Security bill that, as I say, passed both houses and was signed by the President. Similarly, the Amtrak authorization bill, a 5-year bill. This had been opposed in past Congresses, so we finally had a breakthrough there, and that's very important to rail security and to rail commerce as well, and most of the Amtrak funding goes to the Northeast, so that's particularly important for our region. And lastly, the Medicare Protection Act, which contained a provision called the doc fix that had been a problem in previous Congresses. It provides funding for Medicare and Medicaid. It also provides money for community health centers, and it makes sure that seniors for their health care don't get shuttled off to a voucher system. It actually funds Medicare and Medicaid. So both at the federal and state level, a good bill. And that had been opposed in the past, but again, between negotiations from the House Republicans and Democrats and in the Senate, we were able to get that done. This last week, we had two spending bills, one for the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Department and the Energy and Water Bill. We are trying to approach the appropriations bill in a timely manner this year. We have 16 appropriation bills. There are some concerns, some lingering concerns with funding for veterans benefits. And the bill that actually went before the House contained a provision that might in some cases reduce funding for veterans benefits. So I oppose that. I am actually a strong supporter of veterans and veterans benefits. So after talking to VFW and a lot of other AMVETS and a lot of other veterans groups, we chose to oppose it. I believe the President will veto it and return it to us and ask us to make those adjustments. Those are benefits that our veterans have earned, and you know, I think that we have an obligation to make sure that they get every bit of benefit, health care, and benefits that they have earned. We also have we had a vote on the budget conference report, but unfortunately it does not make some critical investments in infrastructure, and it cuts Pell Grants for students. A lot of students in our area are struggling with student loans, and so I voted against that. It's moving forward, but I have a feeling the President might veto that as well and send it back to us. One of the big bills that's on the horizon in the next few weeks, we're considering the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a major trade bill. The way these bills work is that the trade bill is actually negotiated in secret, which I'm not fond of. You know, I'm charged with responsibility of voting on your behalf, and if I can't read the bill, I can't very well do a good job at reflecting your wishes. So we've got a set to going back and forth with the President's trade advisor, and up until this point, we haven't come to agreement. They would like us to pass a bill called Fast Track, which would allow the trade bill to go through without amendment. And that's when you usually fix a bill in the House and in the Senate, is you attach amendments to delete the things you don't like and maybe add a few things that you do. But right now, if that Fast Track were to pass, we wouldn't have a whole lot of input. And I think that this type of process has led to the export of a lot of American jobs overseas. This particular Trans-Pacific Partnership trade bill deals with 11 countries. Now, some of the countries are steady partners, and I'm not really worried as much as some others. It does include Australia, Canada, Japan, New Zealand. Those are stable democracies, and I think we have predecessor agreements with all of those countries, so we know we have a good starting base. But the bill also includes, the agreement also includes Chile and Peru and Vietnam. Vietnam, I was there a little while ago, and it's a communist country. Its labor standards are very, very low. There's big concern about child labor. The environmental standards there in the line of production is not nearly what it needs to be. So we don't want to be competing against companies that relocate to places like Vietnam that use child labor or prison labor, and we want to make sure we can read this bill, read this agreement before we have to vote on it. So I'm opposing the fast track legislation. I'm going to vote no on that, And once I get a chance to read the bill and figure out how it's going to impact us, each and every one of those agreements with those 11 countries, then if I think it's in your best interest, I would support it. But in the past, these bills have expedited the removal of jobs from the United States to foreign countries. So we've got to be very careful about how we proceed. We're still trying to work out the transportation funding bill, the highway bill. They're talking about another very short-term extension. Unfortunately, there's no governor in the country that can work with a one-year transportation bill because most of these big projects take 4 or 5 years. So it's of no use to Governor Baker or to any governor in the country to have a 6-month extension or a 1-year extension. You know, the way these projects work now, it takes about a year to do the environmental study on any project of any size. Then you have an engineering portion, and then finally you get a shovel in the ground around year 3. So obviously a 6-month or a 1-year extension does nothing for us. And frankly, we have about $1 trillion in back work, maintenance that's not been done on our highways and bridges and transit stations and dams. So we've got about $1 trillion of work that has not been done. That would put an awful lot of Americans to work if we were to come up with a good 5 or 6-year transportation bill. So we're still working towards that. I did have an opportunity to go down to the FEMA headquarters and to testify along with Governor Baker. We were arguing for more snow removal money because most communities, like Stoughton, were buried in about 104 inches last winter. I'm sure I don't need to remind you, but most towns spent their entire allotment for snow removal in the first 6 or 8 weeks. And so we went down there. You know, I had the numbers from I have 22 towns and 3 cities that I represent, and Governor Baker had the data from all 351 cities and towns. So he and I testified before FEMA, asking them for additional money. I think we asked for $480 million. Now, we weren't sure we'd get all that, but we figured, you know, if they were going to knock us down a little bit, that was sufficient to take care of the costs for snow removal and any damage to infrastructure that occurred because of the heavy snow and wind. You know, we have to pay for storm recovery and also seawalls. We had a lot of facilities. We had hockey rinks that collapsed. We had warehouses, so there was a lot of cost there. FEMA's decision was not to our liking. They interpreted our winter as being, they wanted to reimburse us for the first 72 hours of that first storm that we got. That's all they wanted to reimburse us for. But what we argued was that that storm actually lasted for 29 days. That was our position. That, you know, for that, it was the same weather pattern that brought all that snow within 29 days, and the temperature never got above freezing, so we never had an opportunity for snow melt in that 29 days. Now, that is a theory that Buffalo, a couple of years ago, succeeded in prevailing in getting extra snow removal money. So they're going to revisit that, and we'll look and see. They said they will be very flexible on going forward on snow removal money, but we've still got a fight to fight there. Let me see. One of the nicest things I get to do is nominate young people to the United States military academies. And Stoughton, historically, has overperformed in this area, and I want to recognize a couple of your young people who have been, I've had the wonderful pleasure of appointing recently. Michaela Sakic of 72 Bassick Circle. Her parents are Linda McNally and Darrell Sakic. She is a graduate of Cardinal Spellman High School, and she will be she's just finishing her 2nd year, but she will be a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, class of 2017. So she's down at Annapolis right now and doing an amazing job. In addition, Jeffrey Johnson of 18 Erica Drive. His parents are Ken and Sherry Ann. He is a graduate of Stoughton High School, and that's right. So he's at West Point. He's at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and he graduates this year. He will graduate, I think, in July, maybe late June, early July. The next class goes in July 1st, so I think it's late June. But I got to tell you, Jeffrey has done remarkably well. The way it works when you graduate, where you graduate in rank of class, you have the highest picks. In other words, where you want to specialize. One of the highest demand areas is flight school, coming out of West Point, believe it or not. And Jeffrey, who was appointed battalion commander of his group, so he finished very near the top of his class, was accepted and will begin his training at flight school coming out of West Point after he graduates in late June. So both of these young people, both Michaela and Jeffrey, are a wonderful reflection of the town of Stoughton. And they are a wonderful reflection of not only their parents, but their coaches. They both played local ball here and sports, and their teachers and your community at large. And this is a very, very, very competitive process. Since September 11, 2001, the number of applicants who come in and try to gain admission to the military academies has just quadrupled from what it was before. It's because our young people want to serve for all the right reasons. And it is a wonderful honor, really, to the town of Stoughton that you have done, your sons and daughters have, number one, decided that they would like to serve their country, but have done amazingly well in their performance at these academies. So in closing, I just want to thank you very much for being involved in town meeting. This is democracy at its essence. I have the wonderful honor of representing you in Washington, D.C., but this is where it all begins, right here at town meeting. God bless the town of Stoughton, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Let's see, lose a pencil, break a pencil. Well, we left off at the other night, and it's now, I gotta make sure I am on the right page. Yes, we begin on page 34, account number 0135.
$303,492.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Page 35, account number 0145, treasurer collector.
500. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. $536,697.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Page 36, 0111, town council.
$276,000.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion is carried. Page 37, 0159, townhouse budget, $477,715. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any discussion? Mr. Dolinsky.
Mr. Moderator, just a little, through you to whoever can answer. we have a building facilities manager. We budgeted $60,390 for fiscal 15. Now we're budgeting $76,771 for fiscal 16, which is a 27.1% increase. And I'm just curious as to why this increase is as large as it is. Can somebody explain that, please?
If I may, Mr. Moderator, the figure for the previous budget was not for the entire fiscal year.
Right.
It was for a portion of the fiscal year.
Okay, very good. Now, if I may, Mr. Moderator, in a number of these budgets, there's a statement that talks about placement on the grid. Now, I don't know about anybody else sitting here, but I don't see the grid. Is there a possibility somewhere along the line to get a copy of this grid so maybe we can follow this a little bit more intelligently? Because I think when you make a statement that based on the contract, there's more monies that could be added to these numbers, some of these percentages of increase, when you look at one year to the next, are quite large. And every time I see this thing that says, or a statement that says, based on the grid, it's very difficult to follow. And I'd like to see somebody possibly either give it to us, put it in the book, do something, but don't keep mentioning the grid we don't see it.
Just for the record, I'd like to remind you, George, the grid was in fact adopted by town meeting 2 town meetings ago, and
Right.
we will make it available. It's not a problem.
I'd appreciate
We'll
it.
bring in copies to the next session.
Very good, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Mrs. Colburn?
I just wanted to add to that, that when I mentioned in the footnotes the grid increases by 2.5% per step. That's why the statement is there according to the grid. It'll always be 2.5%. If somebody's new going into the grid, they could go in, let's say Thea that just settled, somebody may go in at more than that because of the initial placement on the grid. So if you see somebody increasing by more than 2.5%, it's not because of the step. It's either because of a reclassification or something like that, in which case we'll have made note of that as well. So the grid itself is 2.5% year to year. Anything more than that, there would be an explanation for why it was more than that. Right, and some of the reclassifications are due to negotiations, some are due to maybe a job position's changed and they need to, change the responsibilities, et cetera. So there should be an explanation for all of those. Thank you.
Mr. Ventresco?
When they first started this grid, where they get the initial hourly pay for that particular position to stick into that grid? Because the reason why I asked that, I was at a meeting a couple of months ago, I don't know if it was a CPC or one of them. They were looking for a part-time secretary. And Canton has a part-time, so they wanted to make a deal with Canton to make that like she'd get full-time, half-time here, half-time at Canton. Canton said no way, because Canton pays that position $17 an hour, and in that grid is 27. So I think we're starting off in that grid too high.
Actually, the grid's not 27. Anybody who said 27 was mistaken. I believe the lowest one on the grid starts in the range of about $19 an hour, not $27 an hour.
Well, I'm going to assume, the department heads, they must have had got some information somewhere to throw that figure out, because that killed the deal with Canton.
Also, the grid is based on a person's job description, the complexity of their job, what we require them to have come in the door in terms of education and experience, and then is vetted through a process with what the market rate, and we determine our market rate is in fact other towns, what they pay.
Okay. And this building facilities manager, was he a qualified person when he was hired, or is this one of them positions where we hire on-the-job training? What license or whatever he has in his background?
I didn't understand your question, Peter.
All right. In the past, we've hired top-end managers, no experience, on-the-job training. Now, I'm hearing rumors, but they're only rumors. Sometimes these rumors are correct. Does this guy have any kind of license, like construction supervisors and engineering stamp or
Yes,
something?
he has a
to
construction
qualify him for
supervisor's
this
license
position?
and a builder's license.
Pardon?
And he has a construction supervisor's license and a builder's license and has extensive experience in the private sector. The only thing you may have heard that is true is that this is his first job in the municipal sector.
So that's
But
why
has
he
a
was
long
spending time down
experience
at
in
high
the
school?
private sector.
All right, then.
Mr. Souza, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I didn't approve this budget. I'm not really too fond of it. It was pushed through when I was at a snowstorm. I think some police, fire, and DPW are more necessary than some of these positions at Moore Town Hall. There's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. So as town meeting rep, take a good look at how you're going to vote on this. It's our money. Thank you.
Gentlemen, please give your name and precinct.
Scott Lutz, Precinct 1. Yeah, the statement was made that the $60,390 for the building facilities manager in fiscal 15 was not a full year. Can I request the time frame that it does cover?
It was meant to cover the first 9 months, or the last 9 months of the year. However, the person that was hired was not hired until the first of the year. So there's actually money in that line item that will not be spent.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Take it then, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's voted.
Is that a throat clear?
Page 39, account number 0153, Procurement Department. Mr. Hill.
$152,642.
Any discussion? Or any? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 40, account number 0138, centralized purchasing.
$200,100.
I heard a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion is carried. Page 41, account number 0141, assessors budget,
$318,757.
any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Page 42, account number 0155, information systems.
$289,129.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Page 43, account number 0161, town clerk budget.
$322,560.
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Laurie.
Dave Lurie, Precinct 6. Through you, Mr. Moderator, what caught my attention, temporary wages. There's been a dramatic increase over time. What's driving the increase between 14 through 15 into 16? It's the fifth line item down on the town clerk budget.
Mr. Moderator, if I might. On the last line of the notes, the footnotes for that department, it says the temporary wages increased by $9,100 due to more elections and a slightly higher rate being paid to the poll workers this year and temporary coverage in the office.
For both years.
Ms. Summers?
Another reason for that is that one of the principal clerks left the office for a promotion in November, and we have been without full coverage in the office, so we have utilized the part-time people a lot more than we would have normally. If you notice in the principal clerk's budget, it's less because we didn't have somebody in that position.
Okay. And what, I'm revisiting a little bit of the first line, the department head salary. Can somebody remind me what happened where the budget went from 45 to 85,000, from 14 to 15, and continued on to another increase this year?
Part year.
Well, the fiscal year runs July to July, and I didn't start until January of 2014, so you had about 6 months that there was no one in that
So
position.
that's a partial
Yeah,
year.
it
Got
is.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? On the motion that the town clerk budget with the amount of $322,560. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare it voted. Page 44, account number 0114, town moderator.
$4,500.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You want to count?
No.
All right. I'm going to, I declare it voted. I won't say without debate, but there was.
Moving on.
Okay. Page 45, account number 0175, planning.
$123,699.
Any discussion? Mr. Gito.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I notice in the consulting fees that there's only $20,000 in that account. I'm wondering, is that for the rezoning work that will occur after, given the fact that we just approved the master plan a week ago Tuesday?
If you'll recall, this past town meeting and the meeting before that, we appropriated funds for rewriting the zoning bylaw. This $20,000 is for that purpose, to finish with the consultant who's rewriting the zoning bylaw. We expect that will be done sometime this fall.
Thank you very much. So the work, if I might just follow on, the work that has been going on so far has been to recodify the existing bylaws to bring them up to the same format as the other town work?
I'm certain that's part of the scope. I would have to defer to Noreen on that one. I know she's hanging around back there.
I can ask her that question. That was my understanding. But there is money to take the recommendations from the master plan and convert that into changes to the existing zoning book.
Again, that is my understanding, that it was Noreen's estimate that the $20,000 would be sufficient to finish Attorney Probowski's work.
And you will begin that process this fall?
Yes.
The reason I asked the question is that there's been a lot of planning going on, and the question always comes up from the public, well, there's a lot of planning, but how are you going to implement this? And I just want to make sure that there's not a year's break between the time that we finish the master plan and the time that we start working on getting our zoning bylaw up to speed.
Noreen O'Toole, Town Planner. Just a little update. We're actually working on the zoning right now on some monies that I received last year in the town meeting contract. This $20,000, what I'm going to do is I'll be using the balance of that money to finish off the contract. We plan on coming before the town meeting in the fall with our zoning changes. Yes, we are doing recodification. What we're doing is we're making everything I guess what I'd have to say to fit in with the standards that we have studied in the master plan. So we have made some recodifications of housekeeping, but we've also, will be making some changes. And my plan this summer is I will be having some zoning workshops, and I will be giving out the old zoning bylaw, and I will have another packet that will be the new zoning bylaw. So there'll be no question of what we're trying to change. And there'll be a big discussion about that. And I'll be coming back to town meeting again because this particular town meeting, I'll be making some changes within the zones, but I won't be actually changing the zones at this time. And when I say that, I mean if a zone is a highway business, I'm not going to be changing it to an industrial at this town meeting. That would be my next goal at the next town meeting. There'll be some new bylaws within the document itself, but they won't be the zoning changes per se from one district to another. I mean, I wouldn't be looking at square footage of zones or anything like that at this point in time. So I'm hoping the $20,000 will carry me through this for the fall town meeting, and I'll be back again next year for more money on the zoning or whatever.
Noreen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Gito.
Is there any further discussion on that? I moved my page here, so. Just give me 1 second. On the planning budget, $123,699. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Page 46, account number 0122, Board of Selectmen budget.
$18,330.
Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Page 47, account number 0152, Human Resources.
$217,410.
Need a second? Any discussion? Mr. Laurie.
Dave Lurie, Precinct 6, through you, Mr. Moderator. I notice every year we're giving the HR director an increase. They seem fairly modest compared to some of the other pages we've gone through already. But I also noticed that there's a new position that's explained, I don't understand the explanation of. So we're picking up $73,800 for a program coordinator. I'll tell you the perception that I have. The perception that I have that I'm hoping maybe somebody can maybe correct my thinking on is that we're adding positions that would, in effect, lighten the workload on the people at the top. If that's the case, why are we giving an increase in salary to the top line if we add more work, if we're adding more responsibilities with new positions getting hired? I mean, I just need some help understanding how this is described. I know it's described here, but I just don't get it.
Mr. Hartman.
Essentially, what we are going to is a joint town-school HR department. And the only addition to this budget is a half-time position that last year was split half-time between the treasurer-collector and the personnel department, or the HR department, is now full-time HR. That's the only real change. The other position, if you'll notice, is a school position. It's an existing position in the school department, funded in the school department budget, that will now be supervised by the HR department because that person is performing an HR function.
Yeah, I didn't call that number out. The one above that, the program coordinator,
Correct.
8.7.
That was a half-time position last year, split between
treasurer?
Well,
So-
it was a full-time position split half-time between HR and treasurer collector. It had a different title.
So I need to reference another page within the booklet?
No, it should be shown the year before under a different title, probably payroll something. Was it program administrator then too? It was actually converted to program administrator last year's
No, I'm-
budget.
No, I already saw the school payroll, 62,475. I've highlighted the one above that, the 73,8. So are you saying that the program coordinator is referenced in a different account that I don't understand, that I'm not seeing?
50% of the program coordinator would be referenced in the treasurer's collector's budget for the last fiscal year. Again, it was a full-time position split between two departments. It's now a
is there-
full-time position found in one department.
So it's on a different page within the book, right? I should be able to read that, right?
Right.
Fourth line down. So that's the 50%, okay.
Yes, it's been
And now
zeroed
it's
out.
times two. Got
Yeah.
it. All right, thank
So
you.
it follows.
Got it.
There's no new expense to that.
Any further discussion on human resources budget? If not, on the amount of $217,410, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare voted. Page 48, account number 0411, engineering. There's a notation, conservation rolled in. Mr. Hill.
$466,687.
Any discussion? Mrs. Frankel.
I'd like to bring up something that I don't see in here where conservation has now been rolled into engineering, and I want to make sure that we are planning for our future in here. We have a number of parcels that you will see in Article 45 coming up for development of recreational parcels that are owned or under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. We also have just finished the renovation and redevelopment of the CAP playground, which is under the care and custody of the Recreation Department. That being said, we also have many other recreational parcels around town that are under care and custody of various departments. Where we've rolled this all into, where we've rolled conservation into engineering, I want to make sure that we are prepared in our future going forward, that these will have some type of maintenance in it for these recreational spaces that town meeting has very generously purchased and has allowed us the development monies to go ahead with plans to develop them. So if there is monies in here for trail maintenance in Bird Street for some of our, we have 1,000 acres in there. Where's the money in here for trail maintenance, for, all the other kinds of maintenance things and repairs that need to be done? I'm not seeing them line itemed out anywhere. Maybe they're in other departments. So if somebody could be of assistance with that answer to that.
Maintenance
Mr.
is
Hartman.
listed under ground maintenance. It's the first line item under expenses. And it's proposed being doubled from fiscal 15 to fiscal 16.
Mr. Hill, do you want to?
No, same observation. It doubled from last year to this year. Undergrounds maintenance.
Any further discussion? Mr. Fallon.
James Fallon, Precinct 1. I just wanted, with the conservation in this group, I just wanted to make sure that is any of their products or meetings coming into this question, such as the things that they wanted and brought up. I haven't read anything about a dog walking area going to Glen Echo and all that, but I just heard her say that it got shipped into here, and I just want to know, are we voting on that also?
You are not. There is currently a group that's working on Glen Echo that will ultimately come back with a plan for the portion, which I believe is roughly 6 acres of that land that will be available for recreational use.
Yes, but the rumors that I was getting at is
Well,
the
the
dog
rumors,
walking
the
area.
rumor's not, it's not
All
there.
right, I just
you
want to
know,
make sure
It's not
that the
even been
people-
proposed yet.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Morton?
John Morton, Precinct 3. I would like to observe that the town is changing. We have 27,000 people. We are almost fully developed. We are talking about redevelopment now more than we are talking about further development. We have to change the way we think about these kinds of things. We now have Faxon Park. We have a park at the end of Sumner Street that I saw the DPW working on very hard. We have the CAP playground. We'll have Glen Echo Park, which will require ground maintenance and some rubbish pickup and things like that. We have over 1,000 acres of open space and conservation that the Conservation Commission is working very hard to make accessible. I think we're going to have to, as we progress, think about moving. We have to have accountability for this kinds of stuff. We have been calling on the DPW at the Conservation Commission to do things like remove trees and clean things up for us, but the DPW doesn't really have that kind of thing in its budget. I think eventually we have to move toward creating a Parks Commission which has specific responsibility and a budget for taking care of your property, our property, the town's property. Otherwise, these kinds of investments like the town beach, like Glen Echo, Cape and Reynolds Farm, Faxon Park, the CAP playground, will just fall into disrepair. So I don't think we can continue to look for the DPW to just extend itself and continue to maintain these kinds of things, nor can we be too critical of the Conservation Commission for not doing more to maintain the parks when we're not providing budgets to that effect. I would urge the town management and the Conservation Commission to think hard about creating a Parks and Recreation Department with a specific budget and with accountability and responsibility for maintaining these wonderful things that the town now owns.
Mr. Coleman?
Eric Coleman, Precinct 5. Those were excellent ideas. I wanted to know what the actual expense in fiscal 2014 was for ground maintenance. There's a blank there. Maybe it's in another department.
Mr. Cohen? You have?
Well, while that's being thought of, I don't have a gardener, but imagine some people here do. And you probably have a lot less property than the town has for all these parks that we have. And I can't see how $5,000 can take care of all this land. I'd like to put more money in here, but I don't know where to get it from. So I have no motion for that. But so we're still waiting for ground maintenance number for last year. Mr. Rowe?
Mr. Rowe?
Yeah, that number is zero, Mr. Moderator, for FY14. So
Nothing expended.
nothing expended, so.
So nobody mowed the lawn, nobody fertilized anything or cleaned up,
Probably the DPW.
emptied, so then it's in DPW budget.
Nothing charged to that line anyway in conservation, so I just looked in the conservation budget.
I don't know if it would be stretching it to ask DPW what their number might be that was spent for that. John, can you help us with that, please?
What page is that?
Yes.
While he's coming up, I'm thinking, is the DPW going to be spending money for this as well? So it's going to be together they'll take care of it? It seems unrealistic at $5,000, even though it's double what was budgeted but not spent. Well, it was fiscal 15. I don't know.
Mr. Moderator, while we're waiting.
Mr. Hill.
There's also a revolving fund for the Conservation Commission. There's $26,500 in there, and part of the criteria for that revolving fund is annual trail maintenance and upkeep of conservation land in the town.
Mr. Batchelder.
I believe that the $5,000 figure we're talking about is money that the conservation uses for areas like at Bird Street when they once a year, I believe they have Mr. McNamara comes in and cuts and bales hay. They use it for fertilizing, insect control, so forth and so on. None of that has anything to do with Public Works. We have our Forestry and Parks Department. We mow approximately 70 places a year, probably, with what we have. The majority of our money is probably in the line for a vendor for tree maintenance and so forth. Our regular crews, the Public Works Department does do maintenance work as far as trail work. Once we establish a trail, which was done up at the Lesser Playground for the book walk, that was done by my department. That comes out of Public Works budget. That has nothing to do with the money that we're talking about right now.
All right, thank you. I've spent enough time on this.
Did Mrs. Madden, did you wish to? Sorry, I saw somebody else. Any further discussion? Then, on the amount of $466,687 for the engineering and conservation, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's voted. Page 50, account number 0131, Finance Committee budget.
$317,200.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Page 51, account number 0615, Historical Commission.
$800.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Page 52 to 54, account number 0210, Police Department.
$5,932,461. I'm sorry, $491.
Mr. Cohen.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to amend that another 70,000 on page 112. The first item out of 651, wait a minute. Well, there's an assortment of articles here. I'd like to pull that out of there for the simple reason is they decided to take it out. I want to put it back in the difference. There's 3 police officers involved here. And if you people think the situation is getting any better at the police department as far as crime is under control, we don't have enough police on the street. I'm sorry. They can verify this last month. The gun was out of the holster 11 times, And you know there were shootings last month, but people shooting at our police officers. The population has grown quite a bit. We're not even back for 2.5. We just got there. And the problem here is we need police. I haven't got to fire yet, but police are very, very important. We need the men on the street. If we're going to protect the people, the finance, by the way, this academy, I'll give you a little detail on this. The chief sends the people to Boston Police Academy, which is one of the top 10 in the country. He wants the research he does on these police officers are very expensive, but very good. We have top quality people when they finish the academy. Great news. Guys in the street that really know what they're doing. We've already had 6 or 8 already out of Boston Police Academy.
Where's the motion in writing that we're talking about?
Do we have something in writing?
I'll get you something in writing, Mr. Moderator.
Should we discuss something that isn't even written down? How do I discuss something that isn't written down?
If you wait a minute, Mrs. Walsh, maybe we will do.
Walsh, to you.
Oh, pardon me. Mr. Moderator, could I have a minute and I'll write you this article, please?
I will need a second if you...
Mr. Moderator, could I ask the police budget be tabled till the end of this and we go back to it?
No. Mr. Moderator? So while we're discussing this, I'd like to add a comment. The reason the Finance Committee decided not to fund those 3 positions is because last year, when we decided to form a central dispatch area, there were new positions added there that were to free up police officers currently working in those areas. Those police officers were supposed to be working out on the street. Since the central dispatch hasn't been completed yet, those officers have not been put into place, and so we don't know the impact of those 2. To add 3 more on top of that didn't make sense to the Finance Committee until we know if there was going to be a gap or not. So that's why the Finance Committee made that decision.
Excuse me, Mr. Hill, I was going for 6, not 3, 6.
That department has increased by 25% since 2014. We've added over $1.3 million in payroll and expenses to that line, and we've given them everything they've asked for to this point. There didn't seem to be a rationale to be able to support the arguments for 3 more, other than to bring us up to staffing from, I don't know, 26 or 2006 or something. That was pretty much the justification. So we didn't. Again, that's what we had to go with.
Ladies and gentlemen,
we can't deal with emotional information here. We need to be able to deal with facts and figures.
I'd like to make a motion.
This is an emotional argument.
We postpone this or delay it till the end of the budget process, where I will have a motion for you. Okay, I'll say more on this later. Thank you.
Before we get into any further motions, we have to have a suspension of the 30-hour rule on having this material advanced. Even put on, if you want to suspend the rules on that 30-hour motion, it takes a 2/3 vote. So, what's that? What's that? That's correct. On the 30-hour rule, and let me explain this very carefully. I haven't accepted that motion yet. But if you want an explanation, this is just the circumstances that have started the problem that we instituted the 30-hour rule. Now, you've received your reports by your vote last night that you've had enough time to look at things. And if we start going away from that 30-hour rule, which says that something has to be in the hands of at least the moderator or the town clerk 30 hours before we act on it. And if we receive that this evening, we don't have to act on it this evening. In fact, we'd like to have it before we act on it. There's very good reason for that. So at this point, if you want that motion to be presented and turned over into Monday's session, fine, we can put it on, put the entire budget and allow that to happen. We can make a motion to table, and if there's any other things that you wish to do on these or any other budget, make a change, follow the 30-hour rule, and have it, and we got a few days to bring it ahead, because it isn't fair to try to deal with numbers caught out in the air. And eventually, this is where things get changed, miswritten, and ultimately defeat the purpose of that. So at this time, any motion, verbal motion, I have not accepted. It might be a suggestion, but I think those people who wish to make a change follow that 30-hour rule and proceed accordingly. So at this time, Mr. Cohn, you can do on that. I'm going to recognize some other people who wanted to speak. And Eric Coleman? No? Well, he hasn't even followed the 30-hour rule. All right, the town clerk has offered, town council has agreed on a motion to suspend. We don't need that in writing. However, if you want to suspend the rules to allow this to go any further, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? No. I understand that that is correct. That is on what Mr. Cohen was talking about. If you want to talk about the police department budget, that's still on the floor. But not, yeah, I got your names.
Ms. Walsh is first up.
Miss Walsh.
Oh, Mr.
Oh, all right, you guys swapped seats when I was, yeah.
You gotta go sit over there.
Okay. Well, Mr. Coleman got on my right.
There's a rule about that.
Who's on first?
Mr. Coleman. You got to follow the rules. There's rules here.
Okay, Mr.
Very,
Lurie.
very careful rules that we have. Dave Lurie, Precinct 6. So in my calculation, the change in budget on the line item for sergeants is roughly 12%, and then on 2 lines down, patrolmen get about a 10% increase in salary. Some, you know, I know it's divided by FTEs and so on and so forth, but there's an average of those percentages as an increase. How does, I think what I'm trying to find out is that if we're going to consider motions, then it's got to have, we have to bear in mind that it would have an impact on the budget that's already being asked for these positions. First and foremost, where's the money going to come from for these new positions? Is it going to come out of their pocket, or are we talking about creating brand new budget? Now that's one concern I have, because there's a substantial increase for these gentlemen and ladies who are rolled up into these jobs right here. There are no notes. I don't have any notes, and I don't like to read notes anyway. I like to read numbers. I'm a numbers. I just like to read. I don't.
Oh, the notes on here.
Okay.
I don't see notes, so I want to move on. I have another question. I have more.
Mr. Lurie.
I have
please.
more. I have more to add. If we're going to consider additional positions, I want to make sure that
You're out of order now that we've
All right, so I'll bring that up later, but I just want to point out there is additional money being considered here.
Ms. Walsh.
I went to every single budget session, whether it was selectmen or finance committee or whatever. Everybody wants to spend more money. There isn't any. I think if you look at the revenue sheet, we've got a whole $3,000 we can fool around with. I say we vote what's printed in the book.
Ms. Campbell.
Carolyn Campbell, Precinct 5. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to whoever can answer the question. The chairman of the Finance Committee brought up the status of the civilian dispatch reorganization. What is the status of that reorganization?
Chief?
I got to stand on Paul's. The architect is just finishing the plans for the layout, and they're looking to go out to bid on the contract for the GC, I believe, by the end of June, and they should start the build-out sometime in July.
So at that point, when would the civilian dispatchers be hired so that the officers would be going?
Currently, there are civilian dispatches in place. There are 4 at the fire department that will be transferred over to the police department, and what's the count you have?
Those aren't the new positions.
And the police department has 4 full-timers and 1 per diem part-time.
All right, so all those officers that were talked about have been moved?
Brian Holmes, I'm a sergeant here on behalf of the police chief. I'm almost as tall as him, so he picked me for the job. But I'd just like to clarify something. The creation of the call center is not going to put another officer on the street. The officer is going to be a station attendant. He's going to look after the prisoners. He's going to get the meals. He's going to take reports in the lobby. He's going to oversee the communications center. So there are times when you might be able to pull the station officer and put him or her on the street. But that's not necessarily going to be the case automatically.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Hill.
Last year, when the Finance Committee was presented with staffing the combined dispatch area with more than what the 2 departments would equal is that there would be a payback. So currently, there's an officer doing records checks and background checks and licensing of firearms and things of that nature, and there was going to be a payback there. Plus, by having a civilian person centrally overseeing that civilian area, it would free up other police officer duties. This is what the chief told the Finance Committee last year. This is what we based our decision on to hire those additional positions, the principal clerk positions that were in there, and the program administrator too. That's all we can tell you. So there were supposed to be paybacks here. If we're hearing now that's different, I'd like to hear that from the chief.
Jay?
I can add to that, if I may. There is a regulatory umbrella that we're trying to bring all of the civilian dispatches under. Approximately 3 years ago, there was a Code of Massachusetts regulation that was established to make a recertification process for civilian call takers and dispatchers to maintain their 911 certification. These civilian dispatchers and call takers have to get 40 hours of continuing ed, similar to what you would do if you were an EMT recertifying. Certain things that we do for annual in-service count, but there's more at work here than just taking the desk officer and putting him or her out on the street or in the station or watching the prisoners. The goal is to establish a call center where all the calls go together and everything comes under one budget. But there are also considerations for recertification and training that have to be overseen.
Mr. Hill.
And I appreciate Mr. Holmes bringing that up. Lieutenant, actually, is it? Sergeant, sorry.
Thank you.
I appreciate Sergeant Holmes bringing that up, but this was all discussed last year with this budget, that those costs were built into the process, that we knew we'd have to level up, for example, the staff at the police department to be able to do 911 calls, dispatch for fire, et cetera, because it requires, to his point, a whole different level of training. But this was a discussion that was had last year, and this training was supposed to have been taken care of and calculated into their budgets for the new department.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you.
Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just a quick question. Is the dog officer part of the budget, of this budget?
Yeah. You mean?
You'll find a dog officer. When you say dog officer, what do you mean? We have two police officers who
animal
are trained to
control.
be dog handlers.
I'm just showing how
The
old I-
animal
I'm showing how
control
old I am.
officer is part of the animal control budget.
Is that a separate budget?
Yes, that's a separate budget.
Okay, I'll ask the question then. Thank you.
Is there any other business? At this time, we gave the opportunity to somebody, Mr. Cohn, do you want to make a motion to table the police department budget?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, you have to do this, do it.
I'd like to make a motion, we table the police budget till the end.
On the motion to table. Till the next session. Monday.
Why is it Wednesday?
Monday is the,
No.
we're on.
He's just causing trouble.
Yeah. Right. They can table it to any time. Just, yeah. I don't know where you get the idea. We have Monday. All those in favor of tabling, say aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion is lost. Therefore, at this time, on the police department budget, count number 210, on the amount of $5,932,491. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried, and I'm going to say unanimous. Page 55, account number 0213.
$100,800.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Page 56, account number 0217, Central Dispatch.
$515,612.
Any discussion? No. Oh. Any discussion now? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried. Page 57 to 59, account number 0220, Fire and Rescue Department.
$5,340,811.
Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Page 60, account number 0241, Building and Code Enforcement. Mr. Hill.
$322,971.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion on the amount of $322,971, Building and Code Enforcement, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Page 62, account number 0292, animal control.
$73,662.
Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question is, do we have an officer in place now? And the reason, excuse me, the reason I ask, I was on a job site yesterday on Campanelli Parkway, and there was a deer carcass there, and I had called the station to see whether someone could check it out, and they said that probably would have to call Public Works, and I asked, is the animal control person the one to talk to, and I was told that he's not here, or he's out for some time, or something to that effect. I don't know if that ended up going to DPW or not, because I wasn't going to move it, that's for sure. So I guess my question is, do we have a animal control person in place now?
Yes, we do.
And why was I told the person wouldn't be available for some...
Because the person's on leave.
Okay, so what happens, like in this case, I'm on a job site, I find a deer carcass on the front lawn, along the curb. Who am I supposed to call?
I think you handled it appropriately in calling Public Works.
Well, no, I didn't. I called the police department
Well,
first. And then they said something about the Public Works,
Right.
so...
That would be the fallback, is they would ask Public Works to go out and remove the carcass.
Okay. They may have done that. I don't know if the call went to them or not,
But
because I left.
there is a person in place, and he is presently on leave.
Okay. So if that happens, you can just call directly to Public Works.
I would still go through police dispatch,
Go that way first.
so they're familiar with the problem, so that they know.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Any further discussion on that? If not, is that somebody? Oh, okay. On the amount of $73,662 for the animal control, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is voted. Pages 63 and 64, account number 0421, DPW, General and Highway.
$1,273,322.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Lurie, and I ask Mr. Batchelder to be responding.
Dave Lurie, Precinct 6. Yeah, through you, Mr. Moderator, I noticed a substantial increase on Senior Clerk 1. It's extremely large, the increase. It was, modest increase 14 to 15, and then a huge jump this year. Did something about that position change that we should know about? Senior Clerk 1, it's about 3, 6, 9, 10, about 11 lines down.
0.
58,181 from 48. That's one. What am I missing here?
The last right-hand column.
Finance zeroed it out. Okay. So that position is no longer in existence?
No, I have to clarify, the finance did not zero it out. There was a reorganization in this budget, and that position has been eliminated and replaced with a program coordinator's position. Program administrator's position. If the figures you're quoting are the current year's budget, but what is proposed is a change for that position in the fiscal 16 budget.
Program administrator's 14,494?
It's split over 4 departments.
4 departments.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's the third footnote on the page 65.
Mrs. Frankel.
With all due respect, the Finance Committee, and I know Mrs. Colburn puts a tremendous amount of effort into the footnotes and everything else, and other members, department heads. Many of the questions that I've heard this evening have are answerable if everybody reads the footnotes at the bottom of the budget. And I implore you all to spend some time, look at the budget, whatever you have questions on, read all this stuff down the bottom. That's why this book is 200 and something pages long, but there's an awful lot of information in here, and we can answer a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight just by reading.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amount of $1,273,322 for the DPW General and Highway budget? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Is voted.
Thank you.
Stay there.
Don't leave yet. Page 66, 042, account number 0423. I don't even want to say this word, removal. 240, whatever. Mr. Hill.
$245,615. Plus 1.5 million.
Is there any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of $245,615 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Page 67, account number 0422, highway construction. Mr. Hill.
$431,100.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is voted. Page 68, 69, account number 0433, sanitation.
$1,709,984.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's a vote. Page 70, account number 0424, street lighting. Mr. Hill.
$387,360.
Any discussion? Mr. Cohn.
On street light replacements, are we replacing existing fixtures with LED, like go from 50 down to 22 watts with double the light?
Mr. Batchelor.
Any that have to be replaced, that's exactly what we're doing. The streetlight replacement line is for lights that we are replacing completely. Some of the ones that are in some of the old subdivisions that were on wooden posts, or some of them that were on the 17-footers with the fiberglass posts, have seen better days and don't offer us any light at all. They light up a little spot of grass. So those are the ones that we're having. We have a series of streets that we've started over the past few years. And between that and another line item, we are replacing those. But the ones in the regular budget, anything that needs to be replaced is now being replaced with an LED. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Cohn, because this budget has actually leveled out or gone down over the past number of years, and we haven't lost a light yet. And it's all because of LEDs and grants and so forth.
Can I say something about LEDs?
Yes,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cohn.
I'm going to say it anyway, so thank you for your comment. you're going to have 23 watts.
He asked the initial question.
There's money out there for rebates through the utility company, and you're saving yourself over half an energy cost. So you're going to cut yourself down. Your payback would probably be a year and a half, the most 2. But you want to make sure you get the right LED for the town. If you go into Easton and Sharon, you'll find they're not the right ones because they went too low. But I'm just saying, for future reference, we should think of this too, and be progressive instead of degressive on this. Thank you.
Any further discussion on street light? If not, all those in favor of $387,360, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, it's voted. Page 70, account number 0425, Municipal Fuel Depot. There's no money being appropriated, so I'm going to assume that that account is closed. Mr. Hill?
No, I think the account's still there, but it's zero. It's
It
really,
is?
it's a transfer account. So as the bills come in, they get coded to this account, and then they get the bills, the money for those bills, the costs get expensed out to the departments, and at the end of the year, it should wash and be zero.
Okay, so there's a bookkeeping transaction.
Yeah, so if you look at 2014, there's actually a credit in there for $8,840.
Good. I will go on to the next subject without taking a vote on that. Page 71, account number 0510, Board of Health.
$148,940.
Mr. Laurie?
Dave Lurie, Precinct 6, and I read the footnotes. Point.
Progress.
Boy, am I glad I did. We apparently have 2 household hazardous waste days. I'm not aware of when that happened. I've never noticed that we do have them. This year, this month, we're having 2 this month.
You
Because
are
the
having
budget-
one on May 16th.
I imagine that's why the budget went up 8,013, then 20. So at what point did we end up with 2 days? Because it seems like a sharp increase. What? We've had 2 for a while?
Yeah.
So if we've had two for years, why did we go from 8,000 to 13 to 20 in cost? I thought we made money off of waste days because we sell the batteries, the tires. All these things are recycled. That's my understanding.
Mr. Hartman, can you explain the process?
Those are the fees that go into the revolving fund that help.
Some years ago, yeah, we paid for this out of the revolving fund, and then somehow or another it went into the Board of Health budget. The selectmen decided, and the Finance Committee agreed to go back to the revolving fund. So among the items that you passed for the revolving fund from the Board of Health is 2 hazardous waste days at $10,000 each.
So we were spending that money already, and now we're seeing it under this budget. Is that my understanding? Or what did I?
No, you were spending it under this budget, you'll now be spending it under the revolving fund.
Okay.
Right, so that expense of $8,050 from fiscal 14 came from the levy. This year, that money is coming out of a revolving fund.
And therefore, the cost is higher.
Well, I think that they doubled the number of days they were doing it in addition.
They said that we've had 2 days for years. That's much further back than 2014, so that doesn't seem...
Okay, I can't speak to that then.
They said for years.
The hazardous
Town meeting.
waste is handled by a vendor under a contract. It's a per unit cost, and the amount of waste that vendor is handling has gone up every year because more and more people are choosing to recycle their hazardous waste. So we anticipate that the amount of hazardous waste we handle will in fact go up. So you have to have sufficient funds appropriated to pay the per unit cost.
Yeah, but that vendor also makes money off of those days as well, correct? Not just out of the budget.
No, the
but-
vendor comes in and runs
Because
the
we-
program for us and charges us a fee.
No, but
What
we get charged as well at the point of throwing something out, we pay.
No, when
There
you,
are bad- I know
when you,
that
when you bring hazardous waste to hazardous waste day on the 16th, you are not charged.
No, there are items that you bring, tires and batteries. There are things that you pay to have them removed. What am I missing? I thought we paid for certain items to get thrown out. I'm pretty sure they make money on that day. What am I missing? That's my understanding.
Yeah, there are certain things you do pay for, but, for example, when you bring in pesticides or insecticides or paint, oil-based paint, there is no charge. The town
Right.
pays, the town absorbs that cost through the revolving fund.
Thank you.
Mr. DeFelice.
And if that money isn't spent from the revolving fund, it just stays in the revolving fund.
I had a question on, a lot of these items are recycled. I mean, you buy a set of tires, you don't take the old tires back home with you. The tire company, whoever it might be, recycles the tires, okay? What? No, I mean, when your tires are taken off your vehicle, they don't throw them in your trunk or in the back of your truck. Their responsibility is to recycle them. When you buy a battery, and the battery is replaced, that battery goes on the shelf and it's recycled through the auto industry. When your lights, these CF,
What's the
whatever
relevancy,
lights...
Mr. Moderator?
What's that?
What's the relevancy?
We're talking about recycling, sir.
Okay.
I think, aren't we?
We're talking about a budget item, a
Yeah,
line item in the
and it's-
budget.
right.
Not having your car charge changed.
Well, if you listen for a second, you'll see the point. The other item I was going to mention is on the CF, whatever they call those little curly Q lights that have mercury in them. When you have to dispose of those, you can bring them to Lowe's, you can bring them to Home Depot. So when you walk
Mr.
in the door, there's a
DeFelice.
place. So the
Mr.
point.
Mr. DeFelice.
Yes, sir. It's not sidetracked.
Right.
We're talking about recycling.
Mr. DeFelice.
Okay.
Mr. DeFelice.
Yes, sir. I can't listen
Okay.
to 5 people here. Yes, sir.
Get to the point.
All right. The point is, if we're paying money to have somebody come in to do this, this stuff is already being done through these various industries that supply these. What do you mean they're not? Of course they are.
Let me point out that, as I recall, and I'm not going to go much further this, we've had the hazardous waste, and it only applies to household. It is not for commercial stuff. They make it very clear. So, at this stage, unless there's an issue with the $148,000, that's where we're limiting the discussion. Ms. Walsh.
Well, I was going to bloviate myself, but move the question.
That's the cutoff debate. All those in favor of... You'll remember. I know, but she made a call to move the previous question, and therefore I will recognize it, and there has been some discussion. Normally, my rule has been at least 2 people have to discuss. So the chair is in charge of this. On the motion to move the previous question, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. There, on the dollar amount of $148,940, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. The amount is voted unanimous. We go on. Page 72, account number 0543, Veterans Services. Mr. Hill.
$750,132.
Is there any discussion on veteran services? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. The motion carries. Page 73, 74, account number 0541, Council on Aging, Mr. Hill.
And again, this is on page 74. It does roll over to the next page. $420,823.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If not, all those opposed, I will say it's unanimous. Page 75, account number 0542, Youth Commission. Mr. Hill,
$254,033.
is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 77, 78, 0610, library. 1 million. Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
$1,061,668.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion asked, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 79, account number 630, recreation. Mr. Hill.
$203,578.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 81, account number 0695, community events. Mr. Hill.
$75,690.
Any discussion? There being none, Mr. Fallon. The lighting is terrible up here. What?
Hello, James Fallon, Precinct 1. I just noticed it's department number 0695, but with 0692. Was that stated?
What's that? Did I miss somebody?
That was Memorial Day was rolled in.
Yeah, in last year's budget, we moved the Memorial Day and Veteran Days Parade into community events. They are still coordinated by the Veterans Agent, but they are now funded under a general title of community events.
Thank you.
Mr. Morton.
I just have a question to anyone who can answer it. I noticed that there's a $10,500 in this bill for community events. In the special town meeting, Article 7, we passed a $10,000 item for Harvest Fest, parade, and so on. Is that an intentional, I wouldn't call it a duplication, but was that taken into account in the $10,500 that's in this article?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, if you go to Article 7 of the special town meeting,
From
we
last, from
approved
this
a
town meeting,
revolving
okay.
fund of $10,000 on page 24. The 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth item down, community events, $10,000.
That's,
And then in this article,
That's the revolving account.
I'm sorry? Yes,
Page 24, revolving account, okay.
that's right. And then in this article, it says community events general, $10,500. Is it intended that there be these two articles for a total of $20,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Any further discussion? Right here, Mr. Laurie.
I'm not sure if I'm covering ground that was already mentioned about community events, but I notice on page 81, I read the description of what community events are, but in 14, 15, and no one's requested in 16 anything for police details for community events, and now we have a $30,000. What did I miss? So we already pay for the police detail, correct?
Please don't
Okay.
interrupt us.
Thank you.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion is carried, it's voted. Page 82, account number 0650, Parks,
$64,752.
752.
I'm sorry, $725.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 83, 84, I see two numbers here, 0651 and 0710, Cedar Hill Enterprise. Thought we handled that.
We did vote this, didn't we? In the enterprise accounts at the front end?
Didn't we? This is,
$305,037.
okay. I thought we handled this in a different manner, but that's, is there any discussion on it? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Pages 85 to 86, account number 0522, Public Health. Mr. Hill.
And just to qualify, this is the VNA. $1,151,604.
Mr. Souza, did you want to? Oh, that tone, geez, that's bad as Hanson, Mullen, gee, we.
Antonio Souza, Precinct 3, and the reason that I'm up here, I know many of you have read the letter written by Mr. Hill, or the chairman of the Finance Committee, how much money we're losing on this department. It's not sustainable. I don't think it makes any sense to keep putting $300,000 a year to keep this department alive.
You talking the VNA?
That's correct. And I don't know how many of you read the letter right in the beginning of the book, which is self-explanatory, and it just doesn't make any sense. And what are we going to do about it? Well, there's another thing that's a little confusing. On the letter, it refers to the VNA, then it comes on the public health now, so it might be confusing for some people.
Is this, I'm looking at different stuff here. It's the amount, we're talking on the amount of $1,151,604 for public health, also VNA, are we talking?
Correct.
All right.
I mean, what can we do about saving this department? Are we not charging enough? We're not getting new clients? It's obvious something wrong that we lost $1 million in the last 3 years, and we're not making enough money to cover expenses.
Mr. Hartman?
We used to be a moneymaker.
The department is presently working towards affiliating with a larger group that would allow the department to become eligible for private insurance. Currently, right now, the only insurance that we receive is Medicaid or Mass Health, and, Medicare, and that amount has been cut substantially by the federal government, and in fact does not cover the cost. The other side of that is we have the same problem with running an ambulance service. You know, the cost that we get for an ambulance call does not cover the cost of the service.
Yeah, but if this had been an ongoing problem, I think we should have looked at this a couple of years ago when we started losing the money that we were losing, not waiting for now or for next year to look into it and lose another $300,000.
Well, that is why we're affiliating with a group that will allow us to accept private insurance. The last 2 years, we pursued that individually without much success because we're a small agency. We are looking at joining, what is it called, Visiting Nurses of New England. that would put us, they would handle all the billing, that would make us eligible to collect private insurance. Right now, if you want to use the VNA,
I can't.
we can't accept your private insurance because we're not set up to do that.
Lucky for me, I don't Medicare, but I've got plenty of experience with the health issues, and I always request the Stoughton VNA, and I could never get it.
Yeah,
because
and
it
that's,
having
it's
a
something
private
that we're
insurance.
trying to address. We tried to address it individually for, once Janice was hired. We were not successful, so we are now going to affiliate with a larger group, and she's in the process of working on that.
I mean, is there a sure thing that we're going to be accepted, since we're a smaller group, as you just mentioned?
And I'll let her address that.
Mrs. Bruce?
Hi, I'm Janice Bruce, Director of the Stoughton Visiting Nurses. Hi, Tony. I just want to say, first of all, that our whole department, our expenses for our salaries and all of our expenses, our revenues actually do come in this year $85,000 above all our expenses and our, what puts us into the negative is the fact that we do have the enterprise fund, which we pay indirect costs to the town for doing business with the town, and that pushes us into the red. So actually, all of our revenues were slightly higher than our budget. But we are looking into getting some other insurances.
Can somebody explain that? How do VNA pays the town to do business in town? Can somebody explain that to me, because I don't understand it?
Under state law, if you have an enterprise account, you have to have cost accounting.
Correct.
The town provides services, mostly back office type services, to all of our enterprise funds, Cedar Hill, water, sewer, and the VNA. So there are costs. We also provide services to the school department, that the school personnel sits down with the town accountant every year and figures this out, and then it goes into a report that the school department submits to the state. So it's a common practice, and it's actually required by state law.
Okay, I understand that. But
In addition,
it's up to this board to decide what they want to do, but I'm still having a problem supporting it for the reasons that I stated. And it's nothing saying that we're actually going to be accepted by a larger private group. So that's the only comments I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Hill?
I'm sorry, Peter. I didn't mean to step in front of you. Go ahead.
No, all right.
Hi, Denise. Previous speaker brought up a good question here, and I'd like a little answer to go a little further. If the nurse VNA was out of the enterprise account, how much would they save?
Nothing.
Nothing?
If you took them out of the enterprise account, you'd do the same thing you did with the ambulance fund, and that is come to a realization that at full cost accounting, they're not breaking even, and then you change them into what's known as an offset receipts account. Trash is an offset receipts account. It is not an enterprise fund. We charge a fee, but the fee does not cover the cost. The ambulance is now an offset receipt account. We charge a fee, but it does not recover the cost. It is possible that if she's successful in getting this affiliation, that we will in fact recover the cost. For years, we recovered more than the cost. That's how we accumulated the money in the fund.
Well, I'll say a couple of things. If we didn't take $500,000 from them a few years back, they'd be in a little bit of financial situation. But also, these people are the angels to the elderly. I've used their service myself personally, for myself and my wife. And they come in, they're very professionals, the nurses and the PT people. And I've heard horror stories from people living in our towns when they have these private agencies come in. It gets to be a horror show, and they don't spend any time with you to help you out. It's something else here now. Slipped my mind here. I'll think of it when I sit down.
Mr. Curtin?
What about Mr. Hill?
Oh, all right. Yeah, see, I didn't have you written in the right order.
I just thought of it, and I didn't sit down. If we can make up the shortage, like in the ambulance fund, then we should be able to help these people out too and make up the shortage. Thank you.
Mr. Hill.
In my letter, I did point this out. We had a retained earnings of 2.7 million I'm sorry. Hello, Janice.
Hi.
We had a retained earnings balance of about 2.7 million. Today it's 1.7 million. So we spent $1 million over the last 3 years. I didn't say eliminate the VNA because they do provide a valuable service to our town. But I did say it's a revenue and expense issue. So when you look at the dollars and cents of it and that they're working on a revenue plan, that's terrific. 3 years ago, this town meeting passed an article requesting special legislation to move money from an enterprise account into, I believe, a stabilization account. So I guess my recommendation would be is that rather than watch that retained earnings just dwindle away, that we put that money in a stabilization account, and if we need to supplement it, we can move money back out again, but hopefully by that time, the department would become stabilizing and self-sufficient. And it's not just the overhead costs that they supply. There's, a part of the second floor at real estate that now we're looking for more space for offices and things of that nature. So again, we're spending we're investing in the VNA. We've just, I think, asked for another $200,000 for upgrading of computer equipment and software programs, et cetera. So I'm not speaking against the VNA. I just think we need to look at the dollars and cents and come up with a business plan to make it work. That's all.
Okay. I just want to say a few more things. I have been researching getting some HMO contracts. Years ago, everybody, when they turned 65, went on Medicare, but that's not the case anymore. So we want to be able to offer our services to as many people in Stoughton as we can. It has been difficult. I'm going one avenue. If I have a problem with that, then I'm going to be asking the town to help me get some sort of an insurance broker person to help get us these contracts. But other than that, I just want people to remember, and it's not about sentiment, because the VNA has been here since the early 1900s, but the department itself is a really, I think it's just an excellent service for a town to have, to be able to have nurses and physical therapists to go out. And yes, we want to be able to offer it to anybody, but there are a lot of visits that we make that aren't even visits that we bill for. A lot of them are, people call us and we go out and do an assessment for somebody that needs some public health kind of guidance or assistance. It's not just all about the services that we provide that we're able to bill somebody's insurance for. We do a lot of public health activities as well. And even if the VNA someday does change into something else, I would hope you're still going to have a public health department that you're going to fund for probably almost what we're giving back into this enterprise fund every year, because you'll probably, we do the flu clinics, the blood pressure clinics, rabies clinics, health promotional visits. So it's not all just the revenue producing visits that we make. So I know it's a serious concern. I like what Rick just said about possibly, being able to fund the department, but I guess that'll be a conversation maybe next year to really look at the business plan and what this means to our community. So I guess we'll see you next year on that. Anyway.
Mr. Curtin.
Jim Curtin, Precinct 4. Just a few things. As Mr. Hill had previously stated, it was 3 years ago that we decided we were going to start robbing the enterprise fund that the VNA put together. And back then, it was Lisa Parent that was running the organization, and she did come out and she did warn you that due to Medicare cuts on a regular basis, that we were going to run into this problem. So it was foretold to us, we took the money. Does anybody have a figure as to how much money was taken from the enterprise account and moved over?
None.
Nothing was taken, none of their retained earnings were moved?
The legislation was passed, but no money was ever moved.
Okay.
It just gave us the ability to be able to do that, should we decide to as a group. As a town
Okay,
meeting going
by
forward.
mistake. I thought there was money taken out. But to you, Ms. Bruce, just a question, because I know this impacts me as a paramedic. With the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, they're putting a lot more emphasis on care in the home. Is that going to affect your organization, and will that increase the revenues that you're bringing in?
Well, Definitely, because it's all has to do with the care system and having people get out of the hospital faster, less time in a skilled nursing facility because that's costly. Actually, VNA services are probably less costly to take care of people if they don't have to keep them in a hospital and pay for inpatient to a skilled nursing facility. We are going to see more patients being cared for at home, and I don't know if anybody is being kept aware of it, but I know the fire department is about community paramedicine, and that's also a link that trying to keep people out of hospitals. And for the public health department in Stoughton, that's when an EMT would go out and make a decision, assess a person, may not need to go to the hospital, but maybe somebody that would have to be followed for a little bit. So that's just another avenue that we're going to, all communities are going to be looking at that probably within the next couple of years.
As a member of the Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts, we are merging with VNAs because we need the VNAs in order to be able to do this. And what's going on with the Affordable Care Act is basically once you're discharged from a hospital, if you're readmitted for the same problem within a certain period, I believe it's 30 days, the hospital eats the cost of the care. So they're going to be pushing more for VNAs, for community paramedicine and that thing. So that might wind up affecting this budget. But also, as a firefighter in this town, I see a lot of people. Some people are well off, some people aren't as well off. And sometimes we have our elderly and our seniors that kind of fall through the cracks. And I'll tell you, I use Janice and her outreach worker a lot. When I find these people that are in need of services and don't know that services are out there, I rely on not only the VNA, but also the Council on Aging, and I'd hate to see anything go wrong. Hate to see us lose them. So thank you for the services that you and your team provide for us, and I hope you pass this budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Cynthia Walsh, Precinct 2. I move the question.
That's the cutoff debate. In the budget, I'll restate it, the public health, quote, VNA, account recommendation was $1,151,604. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried. Page 87 to 89. We have a couple numbers here. 050 and 0710 water enterprise budget.
$6,388,038.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Page 91 to 93, 0440 and 0710. Sewer enterprise, it says sewer and drains here. 6 million, go ahead, Mr. Hill.
$6,685,864.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Page 94, and I'm going to take this separately, regional school assessment. Mr. Hill.
$1,473,105.
Is there any discussion on it? Mr. Cohen.
Last night, Southeast Regional came before the Board of Selectmen, and I'm going to bring up our favorite subject about assessments, but a little more assessments that you should know about. Brockton schools pay $9,173,887 for each student, $3,617.89. Stoughton pays $1 million. That's for 866 students. Stoughton has 137 children. We pay $1,433,105. Our cost is $10,433 $460.62, which gives us a SERP from Stoughton to Brockton is $6,842.73. Multiplied by 132 comes over pretty close to over $900,000. We spoke to the man. It has nothing to do with the school. The school is a great school, great education. The trouble is the formula is horrible. And we're paying for Brockton children because they're a poor community and we're a little better off. Brian Joyce will be here, and I hope the school department and the Southeast Regional representative from our place is sitting in that office asking him why. It's a lot of money that this town can use. I think we should be paying, every school system should be paying per student, regardless. And that's all I have to say to you, just the public information. Just remember, over $900,000. Wow, what that could do for us, our budgets. Thank you.
I recognize Mrs. Robin Zoll, who is our elected member to the Southeastern Regional School Committee.
Hi, Robin Zoll, Precinct 7. Okay. The formula that we're working under was set by the state. The Stoughton Public Schools work with the same formula as we do. You go to meetings. I've gone to meetings through the MASC, Mass Association of School Committees. There isn't a community that's happy with the formula. But if you change the formula, then some other communities will be angry. The cities will be angry. The rural schools are really in bad shape. I mean, I went to Day on the Hill last week, and you wouldn't believe what shape they're in. Nobody's happy with the formula, but nobody can figure out a better formula. We're all working with the same formula.
Just an additional note, it's more for information purposes. The Chapter 70, I guess, I wish our school district had this reimbursement rate, but the Southeast Regional is reimbursed at 63% of their budget, which is $14,265,000 comes back in Chapter 70 money. So the cities and towns end up paying the difference, and that's $8,300,000. So that's 36% of their total budget is what the cities and towns end up paying for.
Mr. Ventresco.
Peter Ventresco, Precinct 8. I've been coming here for 20-odd years, and I hear the same argument every year, badgering the superintendent from the Southeastern Regional because it's unfair how different towns get charged. It's a state formula formed by the legislature. I said this last night at the Selectmen's meeting. If this is going to change, the only way it's going to change is every town manager, every school superintendent across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 351 cities and towns, march on the State House. Otherwise, it's never going to change, and we can go through this conversation for another 20 years. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the regional school assessment? If not, on the amount of $1,473,105, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's voted. Public school assessment. Page 95. I don't have an account number on this. Mr. Hill.
300? Account number 300? Or is it 0300?
Like it used to be.
I'm sorry, 0300.
On the amount.
The amount's $42,950,736.
Any discussion? Is Mr. Soros here? Well, I can't do anything for him. Fine. Any other speakers? Okay, I see no one arguing. All those in favor of $42,950,736 for the public school assessment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's voted without debate. And that looks like we come to the end of the budget.
I want a cookie break.
Now, at this time, are we ready for a recap? I don't think we were. Any change? So we have to go to the front?
Page 27, there's no change to that number. So I'll read the recommendation again, Mr. Moderator.
The original recommendation that you began.
Right, and this
is what we close off with.
Right.
I just want to make sure I go onto the right page here.
Recommendation for Article 9, which is the budget for the fiscal year 2016, is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $86,068,689 for the maintenance and support of the several departments of the town, and that such sum be expended only for the purposes described in FY 2016 budget as printed in the warrant, and further, that to meet this appropriation, the funds be raised or transferred from the following sources as printed in the warrant.
Okay, let me, I'm just trying to find the right page in my stuff. Okay, wow. No, I will take the vote as soon as I have my records right in the right place. On the vote, has been restated, and it is now 9:10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, I will say it's unanimous. And this is 5/6/15. That's what I got on. I don't think we're going to split a minute. Oh. All right. Now, just 1 second, so we... Okay. We're on Article 10. Mr. Hill. Oh, okay. Do we have any?
Fiscal 2015 what? We could have talked about this a while ago, no? Okay. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Moderator. Recommendation that the town vote to transfer and appropriate from Article 23 of the annual town meeting of May 2010 the sum of $9,805.55 and from the 2015 fiscal 2015 administration budget for the Community Preservation Fund undesignated balance of $602.32 to pay for the following unpaid bills from prior fiscal years. LSH Associates, $9,805.35, and CDW Incorporated, $602.32.
Could I have just a quick question here, Mr. Hill, on this expenditure? I assume that CDW is an expense that belonged to the Community Preservation Committee. It is a bill that belongs in that. I just wanted to be sure. Mr. Morton.
I'm sorry, I have to ask a question. It's to be returned to the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund. Was this for the Lucius Clapp work on the historic building? If so, it should be returned to the Historic Preservation Fund.
No, I believe that was the purchase of the laptop for the Community Preservation Group, $602.
Oh, that's the administrative fund, you're
Right.
correct, then, thank you.
So it isn't, it is the proper place to use that.
Just one correction, Mr. Moderator. The money coming for the LSH Associates Incorporated, the $9,805.35 is coming from Article 23, Annual Town Meeting of May of 2010. $9,805.35. I know it says 55 in the text, but the motion, the dollar amounts in the lines for the expenses, 20 cents different. It's 35 cents, not 55 cents. It's less than 10 words. It's less than 20 cents.
Okay, I want to remind everybody, unpaid bills from a prior fiscal year at an annual town meeting require a 4/5 vote if not unanimous. Mr. DeFelice.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the town manager, why aren't these bills paid, and why weren't they paid on time? I don't think anybody likes to do business with a client that doesn't pay their bills on time. It doesn't look good that the town of Stoughton isn't paying their bills timely. What happened with these?
I can answer to the larger bill. The larger bill was lost and not found until after the end of the fiscal year, and the books were closed. It was in fact found when the vendor rebilled us.
Sort of like the checks in the mail.
You know, we get a lot of bills, and this particular one was lost by the department that received it. And we did not know that until the bill came in after the books were closed. I can't answer the question relative to the laptop for community preservation. Perhaps Mr. Rowe can.
Mr. Moderator, we did have a purchase order for that laptop computer open for a long time, and the bill had never come in, so we had closed the purchase order. So we did provide for that, but the bill never showed up for some reason, and we tried to contact CDW, and they finally sent us an email about a year later saying the bill's outstanding. So.
Any further discussion? Mr. Hill, do you look like you want to?
No, thank you, Mr. Moderator. All set.
If it's not unanimous, I will have to take count. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. And this is 6:15. It is what time? 9:15. So by the time I get writing it down, it'll be 9:17. This time I'm going to ask Mr. Mullen to come forward, because I would like to speak on the next article. And we will need a positive motion on this. We do not have a positive motion from, so it'll have to be done from.
Yeah, there is a positive motion, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to amend Chapter...
Well, wait a minute. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir.
That article was not assigned to the Finance Committee, according to my records.
So you'd like the Board of Selectmen to read it?
So this will be either the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen or the Town Manager can read that motion.
Or a representative thereof.
Okay, just let the record reflect that the Deputy Moderator standing in for the Moderator on Article 11, ID 11. Mr. Town Manager?
Yep, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 47 of the Town of Stoughton Town Code to reflect the changes as written in the printed warrant.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion on the article? Mr. Hanson?
I come to you as both as a point of personal privilege and explain why we have this bylaw that's very essential to the procedures particular to this town meeting. This was adopted over 40 years ago because we had problems based on, we have at the annual town meeting, we have two closing dates. We have the petitioned article closing dates on the warrant, and we also have the selectmen's closing date. We also have a procedure where we required to have public hearings. And there is one of the key issues here, we have to advertise, meet those dates. The biggest tool here to allow us to go forward and hold those advertisements and hearings before the warrant actually closes, we have to have some system where we can identify articles in the interim. This is a tracking system, and it's very, very important that we have all these records. And when you have two closing dates, at least 2 or 3 different people handling the warrant. This is not a matter of who is doing it, it's the fact that things are going in different directions. And then our bylaws require that 2 days after the warrant closes, either by the Board of Selectmen or the receipt of petitioned articles, they have to be turned over to the Rules Committee, of which the moderator is the chair. This begins the tracking of these warrant articles. It is very important that we don't lose anything. I look at this tracking just like the way tracking is done for the parcel delivery service. Though every single article in our warrant has a value, if there is a slip-up, we should not allow it even to happen. It's not to blame anyone. It's the purpose of this is to make sure that everything is accounted for. On that podium is a worksheet for every single article to account for everything we're supposed to do with it. And to destroy a system. When that system was set up, it was meant to be simple, which in the past has handled that problem. By statute, the selectmen are in charge of the warrant. However, they also have the authority by practice to reorganize and list those warrant articles in the manner in which they can group things together to make it practical. This becomes a tool that the standing committees use, and at the last, before the Board of Selectmen issue the warrant, they are at liberty to change the order so that it makes sense and practical and expedient. And for well over 100 years, these have been, articles have been put in the warrant, grouped together with similar things. But when that was started back in the last century, before I was in the last century, if the same person who was the town clerk was the clerk to the Board of Selectmen, and this was never an issue. However, we now have a much more sophisticated town meeting. We now have warrants that have gone into the hundreds of warrant articles. We cannot lose something if we have a tracking system. I strongly urge you to not remove that bylaw. It has plenty of tools in that bylaw that the method of numbering is still up to the Board of Selectmen. The system that has been used for the past few years says when a warrant article is received.
He has 30 seconds. Please don't interrupt the speaker again. Thanks.
This is,
I need a summary, some wrapping up, Mr. Hanson, please.
so that process allows everything to be done, the selectmen to have the right and the management, and we can go forward without waiting between the annual closing of petitioned articles and the closing of the warrant to continue our requirement.
Time's up.
So that's my point, and I urge you not to alter the system. It can still be worked. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cupero?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think I'm at one of a few people at the eye of the storm of this particular article. The previous speaker, I value his many years of service to the town. I value his experience. I value his knowledge of the charter. I value his knowledge of the rules. I value everything he has put into town meeting over the years. He's dead wrong on this. I ask you to pull out your warrant right now, pull to any page and any article. I'm on page 96, for example, Article 11, ID 11. Flip back a page, Article 10, ID 10. Flip ahead a page, Article 14, ID 14. All Article 11 does is take out ID 11, which we're told is a tracking system because 40 years ago, someone lost an article. 40 years ago, someone lost an article. That's a pretty darn good track record from 40 years ago to today when nobody has lost an article. And we are going to have every year the same thing, Article 9, ID 9. What I found, personally, I speak from personal experience because I had some interaction with the chairman of the Finance Committee and other members of the Finance Committee, the secretary for the Finance Committee and the secretary, putting together the warrant, gathering up the articles, putting some order to them. It is the Board of Selectmen who determines the order of articles, for sure. The ID number is supposed to be the order that they come in. We assign an ID number for when they come in. That's not what happens. What happens is they get put in a stack, they get stacked up, they get ordered. We can certainly change them, but what this amendment does is if you read it, takes out the identification number, which I defy anyone to, before today, to have told me what an ID number was. I didn't. I was a town meeting member for years and years, been a selectman, never knew. And by the way, go online, pull any other town meeting warrant for any other town around. I have $10 to anyone who can find me any town meeting warrant for any, I won't even put her on the spot, but town council, I'm sure, represents a dozen other or more towns. You don't have an ID number system. What you have is you have a stamp that says received, date, time. That's what this article says. We want a date stamp, a time stamp saying you received it, it's logged in. We don't lose things if they're logged in and stamped. And here's another point that didn't happen 40 years ago. You had, 40 years ago, paper copies. You had one paper copy. Matter of fact, just to get a photocopy of something 40 years ago was an ordeal. Nowadays, you have multiple copies. At the special town meeting, we were getting, in the fall, we were getting drafts of articles emailed into the Board of Selectmen secretary from, I think it was Community Preservation at the time, because we wanted to be expedient about things. We didn't want to have to suffer niceties of ID numbers, for crying out loud. There are plenty of things that we should hold on to for tradition's sake because they're wonderful and, they're quaint. ID numbers isn't one of them because we spent far too many, and I'll tell you why this is important. We spent far too many hours arguing the necessity of ID numbers with the moderator on this particular year, and last year, by the way, prior to my involvement. And, you know, we asked, why is it important? We were told the same explanation. It just didn't fly. So what we thought is we would simplify things, and I think that was the attempt of an hour and a half worth of discussion before we even got started business yesterday, was to streamline things, simplify things, make town meeting run more efficiently, and taking out things that are confusing and archaic, like ID numbers, seemed to me to make sense. And anyone who was involved in compiling this warrant, I think, would back me up 100% on this. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gito? Can I just interrupt for 1 second, Mr. Gito? Anybody else that would like to speak? I know you've been raising hands. Could you please just come down to the first row? If you're capable, if you're not, let me know. That way everybody can see who's in line. Mr. Delinsky, are you in line too? No. Well, we're trying to save some money. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Gito, go ahead.
After the last two discussions, this is very mundane. On page 97, under time limits, second line, it says request at the selectmen. I think it should read of the selectmen. If you just sort of make that change as your, maybe that should just be part of the article. And if it's not, you probably should do it. If this fails, maybe you'd want to fix that anyway.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Hill?
I would like to support everything that Selectman Recupero had said, and I yield to the town moderator's knowledge and experience, extreme depth of knowledge and experience in terms of understanding town meeting management and the execution of town meeting. But I also have to agree that I think the time has come to not use this anymore. It's outlived its usefulness, and I'll give you a reason why. When the town clerk's office takes in a petitioned article, which I think are really the ones we're worried about getting lost, they take them in, they certify them, they record them, and there's a record of them, and then they're forwarded up to the Board of Selectmen's office. The Board of Selectmen insert 96% of the articles in the warrant on one night. Do they get all signed the same ID number? No, they don't. So this is really about, in this particular warrant, 3 articles that are petitioned articles. And again, we have much more sophisticated equipment available to track and monitor these things. We spend an inordinate amount of time trying to navigate through the ID process, and we think that it truly has outlived its purpose. So, in deference to the town moderator, who we highly respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Joseph Flynn?
Joe Flynn, Precinct 7. This is exactly why I came back to town meeting. $42 million school budget, nothing. $6 million police department budget, nothing. $5-point-something million fire department budget, nothing. We come up with this mundane, ridiculous garbage, a typo, if you will. And here we are, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to stick with the man that runs the meeting, the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Mr. Laurie?
Dave Laurie, Precinct 6. The previous speaker made a terrific speech about how we have to move forward in thinking about how the future should be, and used a reference to how 40 years back a system was put in place so we can track things so they don't get lost, and in 40 years that same person said, and we haven't lost an article since that system was put in place. Seems like a strong argument in favor of what the moderator said we should keep. We never lost one. The system was working. And to talk about like systems, and if you think about like, computerization and all these modern ideas, what do they use in computer systems? They use identifiers. We have an identifier within the system so that if we choose to go computerized and we try to get modern and progressive. We have a system in place with identifiers that we can track this stuff. I vote in favor of the way it was, the way we should keep it going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Laurie. Mr. Smith?
Changes. We're all looking for changes. Well, this particular ID thing has to do with transparency. With the ID in place, everything is transparent. Everybody knows what's there. And it's been that way for 40 years, and the previous speaker has said that it's worked that long. They can't take our rights away, but we can say, you can take our rights away. So let's not let them take our rights away of knowing what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Rock?
John Rock, Precinct 3. Move the question.
All right, the question's been moved. All those in favor of moving the question, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So voted. Okay, on Article 11, ID 11, just briefly amend bylaw Chapter 47, identification of warrant articles as printed in the warrant. This is just a simple majority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. I'm going to have to do a standing count up here. You can't tell the difference. So all those in favor, please rise. And Precinct Chairman, take the count. Yeah, I think you got a better pencil. So what does that mean?
David.
So I should just clarify, I'm sure you understand. If you vote for this, it means you're removing the current ID system. You're changing. Okay? Is that clear for everybody? Everybody in favor? Make sure you stand. All the,
In favor
yeah,
of the
it's
motion,
in.
yes.
When you stand, you're in favor of removing the ID number.
He's in favor of the motion.
Of the motion, which is removing the ID number, amending the bylaw.
Please don't confuse people.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Everybody good?
Yes.
All right, okay. Precinct 1?
6.
Precinct 2? 7. Precinct 3? 9. Precinct 4? 14. Precinct 5? 7. Precinct 6? 10. Precinct 7? 8. Precinct 8? 4. All right, now, all those opposed, please rise. All right, are we ready? Precinct 1?
6.
Precinct 2? 5. Precinct 3? 4. Precinct 4? 1. Precinct 5? 2. Precinct 6? 4. Precinct 7? 4. Precinct 8? 1. All right, we're just calculating the numbers. Stand by. Well, that's all right. Take your time.
Okay.
Okay, the count is 65 yes, 27 no. Thank you, George. That article passes. Okay, stand by for a brief intermission here. We're just changing up again. Where are you?
What's that? If there's a lot of noise going on out there, you are privileged to ask
your
them to
phone booth
either
up there?
remove their presence from the, okay. We have, it is now 9:38.
Island all the culprits.
I recognize Mr. Hill for Article 12, rescind unissued borrowing authorizations.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That the town vote to rescind the unissued, this is Article 12 on page 97, just so everybody knows. That the town vote to rescind the unissued borrowing authorizations in the total amount of $481,215 as printed below in the warrant.
Is there any discussion? If not, Mr. DeFelice.
They're all listed.
Please go to the microphone.
They're all listed, May
Right there,
2010 or May 2011.
Any other question on that? Mr. Dolinsky.
Does this clear up all unissued borrowing, or is there still more that can be closed out?
I would suspect that there's more that would be coming in the future that can be closed out. But no, there's still a number of unissued borrowings that are still out there.
Well, if they're unissued, I mean, why don't we just clear this up instead of just keeping laying around and going each year, pick up a few $100,000 here and there, get it all cleaned out and make it easier for everybody.
We agree.
We usually focus on 1 year at a time.
Mr. Rowe?
Just try to control the unissued amounts. You know, there's a lot of them out there which are still active. So we try to get departments to focus on anything prior to a certain date. This year was May of 2012. So next year it'll be May 2013. Anything prior to that, we'll close those out if department heads don't want to, unless department heads want to leave them open.
Mrs. Hill?
Anita Hill, Precinct 2. Just an additional point of clarification. To my understanding, these that we are now closing out the unissued borrowing portions, these are in agreement with all the department heads that they affect? Yes?
A notice was sent out to the department heads saying that all the following articles would be closed unless they positively affirm that they want to keep them open.
And then the reason why there are still existing unissued borrowing that are not being closed out is because they haven't done the work yet or haven't.
Well, town meeting may have authorized an
Correct.
amount, and the actual cost came in less, so we didn't need to borrow as much.
No, I'm talking about the ones that are still, will be in existence that we're not closing. It's because the department is not finished with them.
Well, we went back to May of 2012. Anything prior to that, we sent out a directive to the department heads.
And just so folks aren't confused, this is the unissued borrowing. So it was, the appropriation was made, we just never borrowed the money. The treasurer collector didn't go out and borrow the money. We do have articles that we did borrow the money on and have cash available because we didn't spend all the cash. That's the unexpended articles that you'll see that we'll use for funding in some of the motions going forward in some of these articles, just so you know. And that's how we're trying to close out those articles. So there's a whole bunch more articles that we'll close out by spending the $16.32 here and the $232,000 there, et cetera. Okay?
Mr. Mullen?
Just a quick question. We have an internal auditor, right? Don't we? We have an internal auditor on the town payroll. Wouldn't this be a good assignment for them? I was a former internal auditor. This is what we used to do, clean up accounts. That certainly helps. Should be able to wrap that up in a few months. Instead of going a year at a time or looking at this, just wrap it up. Let's find out what the available funds are. Whoever wants to answer that.
Well, as Bill indicated, several of them are still open because the work has not been completed yet or is under completion. She does, in fact, routinely review accounts.
So they are monitored all the time, I'm assuming.
She also monitors town
Okay.
budgets.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Elliot Hansen?
Just need a little bit of clarification here. On page 97, you have 481,215. And on page 98, you voted to approve the fund of 418,250. I think that was probably a wording error as well as a mathematical error.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're funding anything. We're unfunding, which is fun.
And thanks for pointing that out, Mr. Hanson. The number is $481,215, and that's not reflected correctly in the Finance Committee vote, but it is correctly listed in the motion.
And we are approving the funding amount, or are we approving the rescinding of that amount?
Right, we're rescinding these unissued borrowings. So these projects have been authorized for borrowing, and we're rescinding that authorization.
Well, I'm just saying, on page 98, it says approve the funding amount, so. It's a wording error.
All right, those are just FinCom comments that were included in it, so, yes, okay, thanks.
Mr. O'Regan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If this helps the body, in December, the Board of Selectmen adopted a policy on special appropriations for a quarterly report. That report, the first report was issued for the quarter ending, I think, December 31, 2014. The Munis system, when it's up and running, is going to allow us to have a better quality report. But the policy is for the selectmen to receive that report quarterly. The policy directs basically 3 levels of figure, prior year to date expenditure on a special appropriation, whether by borrowing or free, whatever it is, free cash, current year expected, and then the third is basically anticipated expenditure to completion of the project. The next build into this will be some narrative information from the department heads on the status of each of these special appropriations. So, and I really hope that Munis delivers on, what we all understand it's going to be able to do for us to get this information, so that this time next year, if I can convince my colleagues, we will have posted on the Selectmen's website the report for all special appropriations, which would include borrowings and free cash. So when we each come here, and when the warrant is prepared, we will have answers to some of the questions that I've been hearing this evening, that we hear every year. Where is the project? What's left to be done? Why isn't it finished? How much is left to do, and at what cost? Those questions hopefully will be answered in this report, and that will make these sorts of warrant articles easier for us to digest and vote on than we've been able to do in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe?
Yeah, and I'd like to follow up on what Mr. O'Regan said. We're going to be doing a presentation at the department head meeting on, I think it's June 14th. Second Thursday in June, I believe. And at that point, there'll be a shared drive where departments in charge of projects will be able to enter their expected completion date and along with narrative on the status of the project, where it stands and so forth, so.
Mr. Fallon.
James Fallon, Precinct 1. I know this could be a crazy question, but I just want to know, all this money that we're looking at now, is it going to be reused, put in the bank for us, or what is going to happen to it now that it's added up like it is?
Sure, and it's a legitimate question, Mr. Fallon, because it's pretty confusing. So this year, for example, we're going to approve an article to, for example, to spend on Article 36, $62,000 on Water Department capital. We're going to appropriate that money. If we get to a point several years down the line and we go back to the department head and say, do you still need this money? And they say no, the treasurer's never going to go out and issue that borrowing. But if they had, this allows us to take the issuing order back. So we didn't borrow the money, but it was issued. So no cash is changing hands. We're just getting it off the books because it's not needed. It's a cleanup.
Thank
you. To Mr. Mullins' point.
Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, this would be analogous to closing out a line of credit, for example.
Nice.
Mr. Lurie.
Dave Lurie, Precinct 6. I wasn't going to get up. I was just going to vote. And after hearing, well, I'm going to say something because I have something to say. So more information comes forward about how we're going to be moving into the computer age. There's going to be new reporting, software, all this stuff. Now, from what I understand, each department head has financial responsibility for the monies that they are supposed to spend when the articles are voted on and they get that budget, correct? Through you, Mr. Moderator. These people control the financial responsibility of entering into the report comes from each department head. Is that fair?
No, it is not. They want to know what it is. That's my determination. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll direct this question to any of the selectmen who could answer it. But who is responsible for entering the data that's going to ultimately end up on a report? Who's responsible for the funds that they are allocated for borrowing or other? When we vote on an article, who enters the data into the report? Is it the heads of department?
Mr. Rowe, I think you can clear that one up.
On the December 31st report, I entered the data into the report. The name of the town meeting, the article number, the description of the article, the original appropriation, the amount of cash borrowed, the amount of town cash used, the amount expended for the prior fiscal years, a detail of the current fiscal year expenditures, and the ending cash balance, and then any outstanding purchase orders, outstanding encumbrances. So I will be entering those amounts quarterly, and then the department heads will be entering a narrative along with the expected completion date.
All right, so from what I understand, then the actual reporting gets done from a centralized accounting role, but the information that comes back to you, you get that data from each department, correct?
Well, no, we get it from the accounting records as to what's spent.
And treasurer collector.
The point,
keep a track of what's spent.
Well, the point is that the data that has to get in there in order for us to get accurate reporting. So what happens if this department that has these leftover monies that they didn't spend, but they actually did, but they didn't send into this new system that's going to have all this fabulous reporting? What happens? Is there a policy that says if you don't report correctly, this money will end up not being spent? Or if they say, I did want to spend it, but I didn't use the system correctly, how does that get reconciled? How do you reconcile when you have the actual need to use the money, but it doesn't get submitted into a report? But you're saying that that can't happen because you're centralizing it. They can't get away with doing that. The money will always be reported.
The money is always reported, yeah. We report the amount of the appropriation, the amount that's spent, the amount of bond proceeds, the amount of free cash that's used. That's all a separate, there's a separate article.
All right.
There's a separate record on the accounting system
Okay.
for each individual article.
Mr. Laurie, I think your time is up. Mr. Coleman.
If necessary, I move the question.
Mr. Cut off debate. All those in favor of cutting off debate, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. On the motion, which is just to rescind the unissued borrowing authorizations for the total amount of $481,215 as itemized herein. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I declare it a vote. What time you got? 9:55. Article 13, Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into contracts for the expenditure of any funds allocated or to be allocated by the Commonwealth for the construction, reconstruction, and improvements of town roads.
This is a fairly routine article. Is there any question about what it is? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I would declare it unanimous and by voice vote. And it's now 9:55. I'm going to make a suggestion, and I don't, at this time, because this brings it up, of something that we may want to take up, considering taking what many towns call these consent agenda items, where we can take them, vote them all at once, list them, and go on. I'm just going to bring it up. It's something that I would highly recommend the selectmen do. I don't think it's really necessary that we spend as much time on these routine things. But that's my opinion and something to take up. Mr. Hill, Article 14.
That the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for and accept any federal and/or state funding which may be available to the town.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Takes me more time to record the vote. Mr. Hill.
Bless you.
Article 15.
That the town vote to approve a collective bargaining contract between the town and the Stoughton Town Hall Employees Association and to transfer from free cash the sum of $74,236 to fund and implement the third fiscal year 2016 of such contract.
Is there any discussion on this? Yeah. Mr. Euro.
Of course, there's a contract.
We used to get the, are we approving a new contract? If so, didn't we used to get the contracts themselves for the town meeting members?
It's only to fund.
I think we did it one year, and there was a case of paper still sitting out on the desk out there, so we decided not to do that anymore.
Mrs. Coleman.
Pat Colburn, Precinct 4. I just want to give a huge round of applause to the town manager, to Mr. Kelly, to the selectmen. If Thayer gets approved tonight, then the entire town side contracts have been settled, and all but one union is now on the town-wide grid, which means that we've got a sustainable growth that we can plan for and budget for. So I don't know if anyone but me is tickled pink, but I'm just thrilled, and I just want to thank everybody for their efforts.
The exception is
On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion is unanimous. It is now 9:59. Article 16, Mr. Hill.
a moment, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Town Manager, are we proceeding with this? We're proceeding with 16. Okay, very good. That the town vote to accept the provisions of general laws, Chapter 41, Section 81U, Paragraph 12, and provide Article 16, as written in the printed warrant, and approve Article 16 as printed in the warrant.
Could somebody explain what this is briefly?
Briefly, what this allows is the planning board can secure or seize a bond on a project that has defaulted. Essentially, that is a voluntary process. The statute specifies that the legislative body must accept the provisions of paragraph 12 in order for the planning board to seize what's known as surety, which is the bond that's been posted to complete subdivisions.
Mr. DeFelice.
I thought this was something that the planning board, at least when I was on the planning board some time ago, this is something that routinely fell in the purview of the planning board. So perhaps if I could impose upon the current chairman of the planning board, doesn't this happen now? I don't understand why we're doing this. I thought that was the job of the planning board.
Mr. Scardino.
I've had some discussions with town council, Alana Quirk, on this particular article. And I know Mr. Hartman simplified this for the purposes of town meeting, but like any law written by lawyers, it's not easy to understand. But Mr. Hill can appreciate this, because unless you have a specific exemption, you need authority to raise and appropriate funds. And what this article does is, once the planning board finds the subdivision, I should say the contractor in default, after a long and lengthy public process, then the funds that are in there we have to have permission to expend them for purposes of completing the subdivision. And in order to complete that process, we have to have an exemption under Chapter 44 in order to spend that money, because the whole process earlier this evening was to raise and appropriate and spend, which only this body can do unless there's a statutory exemption. The planning board sets up gift accounts so that funds can be used for consultants, or in the case of one subdivision, to pay the electric bill of a pumping station. So the purpose of this article is, once the planning board completes its process of finding a developer in default, they can in turn seize the surety, which is on deposit with the treasurer, and it can actually be spent, that the authority to spend it without having to come back to this body to get authorization.
Any further questions? If not, Mr. Ventresco,
Well, I see the next article as being 17, the completion of Woodpecker Road.
well, we're not talking, this is,
Yeah, but wait a minute, is this money coming out of this,
I'm going to ask you if you want privilege of suspending the rules to put the talk about these two things, but I don't advise it. It explains, when we get to 17, you can ask that question.
It's going to be dismissed.
yeah, but if this money, just let me say one thing. If this money is to finish Woodpecker Road, that's
It's
two
not.
separate subdivisions.
It's not.
Yeah, but we're
not?
still on, it's adopting a section of the law. Is there any further discussion on this? If not,
Vote?
Mr. Pessia, you used to be on the planning board, I think you may know. Now he's a CBA.
My only question is to the chairman of the planning board. Is there a rating already in stone in the planning board that you would not accept below? Is there a certain rating and bond rating from the developer that you would not accept? When I was on the planning board, we used to get some developers come in with all kinds of bonds, and they were junk bonds. And they were useless, worthless, and everything else. So I'm wondering if that has been changed since I've been off.
Mr. Scardino.
This article refers to a statute, Chapter 4181U. It's a long statute. It sets out the criteria for what's an appropriate surety. And again, this is a legal term. The bond isn't exactly a piece of paper. It's really a security agreement. And what gives the financial wherewithal to the security agreement is the security. And so the statute 81U provides for certain types of security that the town can take. And we have made a practice of just taking cash. There is, I believe, one agreement with a bank, and that particular project is in default. And the bank said to us, basically, you know, you got your money. You'll have to complete it out of that. So that statute, as far as Mr. Pessia's question, the planning board is currently taking only United States currency.
Any further discussion? Not hearing any further discussion on the motion, which is to accept the provisions of the general law, Chapter 41, 81U, paragraph 12, and as written in the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare it a voice vote. Whoops, a hole in the paper. That's 10:05. I need that kind of a quarter. Barbara has. Mr. Hill. Article 17.
This will be me, Mr. Hanson. Based on advice from council, we want Article 17 withdrawn, or not withdrawn, but dismissed.
On the motion to dismiss, can be discussed, but it doesn't really. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is dismissed. That's 10:06, right? 5-6.
What, 18? Gotta get approved.
Okay. Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to amend the vote, I'm sorry, we're on page 100, and this is Article 18. And on the recommendation that the town vote to amend the vote taken under Article 63, ID 31 of the May 11, 2011 town meeting, and approve Article 18 as written in the printed warrant, with the clarification that the statutory reference contained therein shall be to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority.
Is there any discussion? If not, I will take a vote. This is actually reaffirming a borrowing, a major problem, so this will have to require a standing count. We have it for the record. Well, I'm not going to challenge it twice. All those in favor, please rise, and the chairman take account. We have a record. And there's no question about it. Precinct 1. 12. Precinct 1 is 12. Precinct 2. 12. Precinct 2 is 12. Precinct 3. 11. Precinct 3 is 11. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 14. Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is 10. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 14. Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is 12. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 5. All those opposed, please rise. Precinct 1.
0.
0. Precinct 2. 0. Precinct 2 is 0. Precinct 3. Precinct 3 is 0. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 0. Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is 0. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 0. Precinct 7. 0. Precinct 8. Oop. Hey, let's not see throwing pens there. It's 90 yes, no 0. I would declare it unanimous. And
90 yes.
it is now 10-10.
Howard, could I just say thank you very much? We really will get this thing built now. Thank you.
Mr. Hill on Article 19.
And this is to approve an agreement for a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, which is the acronym is PILOT, with Borrego Solar Systems. The recommendation is that the town vote to approve Article 19 as written in the printed warrant.
Is there any discussion? Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. The last time we did this up there, we were supposed to get the landfill capped, et cetera, et cetera. That went on for God knows how many years to get that done, and they kept expanding that landfill, and now I guess you might call it Mount Trashmore. So I'm not too happy with the way that deal went in the same area, and I think the same thing might happen here. So I'd like to know, when we say a payment in lieu of taxes, what is the payment? First of all, what is the payment? What are they going to pay us?
Mr. Hartman.
The operator of the solar facility, they will continue, or will be paying $8,000 a year in lieu of personal property tax on the solar equipment. The Stoughton Redevelopment Authority pays and will continue to pay $33,000 a year in property taxes on the old landfill site itself. Don't confuse one with the other.
So they're giving us basically an $8,000 stipend per year. And did you say the redevelopment authority is paying the town?
Yes.
$33,000?
Yes.
So why don't we just sell that? Why aren't we just selling it? I mean, what?
We did
It
sell.
sounds-
In
well,
1973, we transferred the landfill proper to the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. They own the landfill.
Okay, so if
On the other hand, the town of Stoughton does have and will continue to have forever liability for what's buried underneath.
No.
And that is why we are still involved.
Excuse me, no.
No,
That
yes.
was not, that, and I think the people at this town meeting are going to remember that the deal was that they were going to cap the landfill. I think everyone will remember that, because it was going to cost us, I think, at the time, if my memory is correct, I think it was going to cost the town something like $4 or $5 million to cap it. So we make a deal with Conroy Company, I believe it was, to give them control of that, and they were going to cap it. So if they capped it, I can't see, and maybe we could ask town council,
Town
why
council's
we would
already
still be
ruled on this.
liable.
We continue and will continue forever to hold the liability for what's buried under there. You're right in that Conroy has the responsibility for closing the landfill in accordance with the statute, and that's what he's doing. If you've been out there, you will notice that the grading has been done, the access road has been done, the planting has been done. I can't speak personally to the relationship between the SRA and the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. That's between, or excuse me, the SRA and Conroy. That's between them. But from our perspective, you know, we have the legal liability for closing the landfill, and in order to obtain a waiver, the town agreed some years ago that we would do alternative energy, and that allowed us to close the landfill without capping it. Otherwise, we would have to dig it back up, line it, and cap it for a cost of in excess of $5 million.
I'm sorry, my memory does not coincide with what you just said. And
Well, I'm not
I
challenging your memory, Ed. I'm telling you the reality
Well,
today in 2015.
So we're being sold another bill of goods here, because I think the people that have been in town meeting for some time, I think will recall that this little sweetheart deal with Conroy was approved because they were going to cap the landfill, because it was going to cost us $4 to $5 million, and we didn't want to spend the money.
Okay.
So,
Mr. DeFelice.
Yes, sir.
We're not discussing what happened in the past.
What, sir?
We're not discussing what happened in the past. We have to deal with what's coming
Mr.
tomorrow.
Moderator, I'm trying to tell you that because of what happened in the past is where we are now.
Mr. Corral.
Landfills in this state lie with the generators of origin. The generators of origin is the town of Stoughton, Massachusetts. They
Okay.
put it there, we own it. You can't change it. That's the law.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Moderator, just a point of information for the folks is this agreement actually is in the back of the book in the article index reference on page 154 if anybody wanted to take a look at it.
Mr. Ventrasco.
And just a qualification, this isn't a tax break, it's a structured payment agreement.
My question is, how long is this contract between the authority and this solar energy company? How many years?
Well, on page 154.
The pilot agreement is a 20-year agreement between the town, the redevelopment authority is not a party to the agreement, between the town and the solar, and in exchange for the solar array, the town will receive what are known as energy credits, which are essentially credits on our energy bills.
Okay. Between now and 20 years, or when 20 years comes, something happens to this company financially, and they walk away, who's responsible for taking this all down? Because this stuff, these solar panels, maybe a lot of people don't realize it, but there's some kind of contaminated materials in them. So that stuff has to be taken down and shipped somewhere west of California to be disposed of.
They are responsible for that.
Yeah, but if they walk away, then what?
Well, first off, Borrego's a national company, and they do this all over, including several other communities in the state, so I don't think they're going to go belly up and walk away.
Well, you say that a lot of big companies have gone belly up already. Shouldn't
and under our
shouldn't the town
bylaw,
have
they
some
will,
kind of a bond?
under our solar bylaw, they will be posting a bond that protects our interest at the end of the pilot or during the pilot, should they do what you're suggesting.
All right.
Any other questions? On the motion, as printed in the warrant, that is for the enter in a pilot program. This does not require a supermajority. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. I will declare it a vote unless the 7 people want to challenge it. Okay, let's carry. This is. Article 20. Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54, as inserted by Section 114 of Chapter 159 of the Acts of 2000, and establish a value of $2,500 as the minimum value of personal property to be subject to taxation effective beginning fiscal year 2017.
You have any comments from the committees? I noticed a different report. If not, Mr. Mullen.
Bob Mullen, Precinct 2. Just a question to whoever can answer it. What's the cost of this? I know we're setting a minimum value for billing, I guess, to save some money on billing. So what's the, cost benefit here? That's all. I'm just curious. Oh, sure. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Gibbons, can you explain this?
Good evening. The cost of this article, what this would do, it would shift, it would cause a shift. We'd basically lose, we have about 850 personal property accounts. We would not assess roughly 40% of those accounts. And the burden of that would shift on everybody else, meaning the other personal property accounts, the other commercial industrial accounts, and the other residential people.
Somebody just beam in?
So, I mean, Joe, do you have like a value, like how many?
Well, it's basically 1/100th of a percent, which would be about a penny, less than a penny on the tax rate.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
That's enough. Thank you.
Mrs. Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am a member of the Finance Committee. I was one of the 2 votes opposed to this article. My reason is I don't think you shift taxation from businesses and then shift that to other businesses and shift it to private property homeowners. Private property homeowners in the long run have much of a burden and have a lot of a burden. And I don't think that should be happening. It may save sending out some bills, but I think there's an ethical consideration here. I don't think it's just a bookkeeping consideration that's here. If people are supposed to pay taxes on personal property, let them pay them. Commercial businesses have the ability to generate revenue. That's what they're in business for. So they are better suited and in a better position to pay taxes than our residential property owners. And shifting taxation from one group to another group simply because of the fact that you want to make it easier for billing concerns, for your billing problems, no matter how small the amount, I think the ethical consideration trumps the expediency in the billing consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons?
Mr. Moderator, through you, I'd just like to tell the public, the assessors and my department don't have a horse in this race. The people that this bill would help the most are the businesses that are valued at under $2,500 and the treasurer collector's office. who would not have to chase down a lot of these accounts. And a lot of these accounts, to be honest, are very, very small businesses, you know, Joe's T-shirt shop and blah, 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 that go into business for 6 months or a year or 2 years maybe, and then they leave town. My department still has to keep an accounting of this. So we still have to do our work regardless of whether the value is, you know, we have to determine what the value is. So we're still doing the same amount of work in our department, but it is facilitating billing and collection.
Mr. Url.
I'm a little confused about this article. So to the previous speaker, through you, Mr. Moderator. So if a business has, I think the value comes from the declaration of the business, how much is the personal property. And if their personal property declaration is, let's say, $1,500, would you be billing them for $2,500 worth, according to this article, or would you be billing? You
No.
would not be billing them at all.
At all.
If the value were $1,500,
yes.
If this article were passed,
yes,
for that year, they would not get a personal property tax bill.
Okay. If did not declare anything, would they be billed for $2,500?
No, they would not.
How is the individual property? How does this affect the individual, like a homeowner's personal property?
As I mentioned before, it would shift burdens a little bit, but it's very, very, it's minuscule.
So
You're talking about less than 1 cent on the tax rate.
So you are assuring us that this is not a new tax for individual homeowners.
Could you repeat that question? I'm
I'm
confused
just,
by the question.
I'm a little alarmed about the word of the shifting the burden. So if I understand you correctly, a homeowner will not be paying extra tax for this, plus or minus few cents.
I can't say that.
With 100% certainty, but with 99.
Can you give us like a warm and fuzzy feeling?
For the most part, they're going to pay a little bit more.
But homeowners right now, they don't pay personal property tax.
Correct,
Other than
but
the
it's part of the whole, the pie theory. Yes. And that's the point. Right. We made that. As I said before, the treasurer collector is not here, okay? If this bill passes, it will facilitate collection. It will lessen the amount of accounts that she has to go chase and, you know, put stamps and send out and use deputy collection services to bring this money in.
Let me rephrase the question. Let's say you have, I think you mentioned about 700 or 800 accounts.
850, I believe.
Yeah. So will this increase the number of accounts substantially?
It will decrease by 40%.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ventresco, are you?
Be aware when they say it's only going to go up pennies. A few years back, my water bill was going to go up a couple of bucks. It went up 40. A couple of years ago, the tax rate was going to go up minimal, maybe 10 bucks. I got hit with $400 some odd dollars. So when they say it's minimal, don't believe it. Businesses make money. He's doing it to help the business and his own office because he says it'll make the workload easy for them. Well, let them work a little harder. That's all I got to say. I'm against this. Vote it down.
Mr. Carrera.
I ain't going to move the question. Joe, you're saying that if
Howie's valued at 1,500. My business is valued at a little bit more. I'm going to pick up his slack.
Yes, yes.
Why?
I'm
Because
not
it
in
makes it easier in that office
Scott,
that,
no,
that people are supposed to be
Scott.
doing their jobs, as Peter said?
Scott, I didn't submit this article. Okay,
Well,
number one.
I don't think you should be standing there fighting for it.
No,
I
I'm
think
trying
it's
to
a bit
clarify.
ridiculous.
I'm not fighting for it. I'm not for
Please
it.
go through
I'm
the moderator.
clarifying the result. You know, if we vote it, what'll happen,
Where
and if
did
we
this-
don't
do me a
vote
favor,
it, what'll
where
happen?
did this come from? I pay plenty of taxes, plenty of excise. I play homeowners and everything, and now you're going to ask me to take care of Joe's T-shirt
I'm not
shop.
asking you to do anything. The chairman of the Board of Assessors and the Board of Assessors, a majority of the Board of Assessors, I should say, okay?
There's three of them.
Right, a majority of the Board of Assessors.
So that's two.
Right.
Okay.
Submitted this article.
It could be 3.
Just to make it easier. Everybody
It-
else is
as
going
I
to
said,
suffer
we-
more.
no, we do
And
not
I'm
have a
gonna
horse
take-
in the
And I'm going
race.
to shift my burden
Scott.
onto Roberta the next time I do her
Yeah.
job. You think that's fair?
No. Scott, as I said, the assessors do not have a horse in the race. We still have to do the same amount of work, whether this bill goes through or not.
Joe, I'm not even talking about your assessors.
Well, that's what you said. You
No,
said
I
you.
didn't. I said, you're
Please
standing
go
there
through the
defending
moderator.
another group.
Second person, you
Right.
said you.
Where's the person who should be defending this?
He's at a Munis conference.
Nice. I put it to you people. I give you a service in this town, and I try to do it the best I can. But I am not going to take care of a T-shirt factory, a nail salon, or whatever, because it's going to make things a little easier. If somebody's negligent in paying their taxes, make them pay it. These 5 up here let it go every year. Oh, geez, I don't know if he's paid up, but give him his thing because we're business friendly. Give him his ticket. Give him his whatever they want. Nobody stands on an incomplete submittal or nothing. If they're not paying, don't give it to them. But search for the money and do what's supposed to. Don't shift it on the rest of us business owners because they think we're doing well. We're not doing as well as you think we are. Thank you.
Mr. Collins. I recognize you.
No.
I recognize Mrs. Cardozo.
Teresa Cardozo, Precinct 7. I agree with what Scott was saying about not shifting the, shifting the cost, but do not think that people who have a business in this town get their permits without paying their taxes, because they go through every office and they come through the treasurer collectors. We report to the selectmen. And between the selectmen and the treasurers, we do very hard to get their money in, and they don't get their permits unless they pay. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman.
Eric Coleman, Precinct 5. I'm trying to figure out the money involved in this. We're establishing a value at $2,500 as a minimum amount that, of personal property, not the tax amount, but the personal property. So there'd be 40% of the 850. What are we looking at that wouldn't be collected, just if it didn't get passed on, but just wouldn't get collected? Is that clear, or should I try again?
Yeah. You're shifting about $100,000.
And what would
Out of $3 billion.
Okay, $100,000. Would the treasurer save any money by not having to go collect or whatever they do?
Yes. She's not.
That's $100,000 in property value, not in taxes, correct?
No.
Yes,
On
$100,000.
$3 billion
Oh, no, I
total
meant
assessment.
Yes, yes.
How much
He
in
wants to know how
taxes?
much taxes is going to be affected by those
I don't have
830
that right in front, but if you took
$100,000, so that's 100 times the tax
Barbara,
rate, no?
Mr.
But it could be residential or it could be commercial, it's
Mr.
it
Hill,
splits.
from the Finance Committee. You may have had.
At the public hearing, the number, I believe, at the time was $9,400.
Okay, there you
Excuse
go.
me, $9,545 total. Plus, we have to prepare and send out billing on 830 accounts several times a year at an additional cost. So when you knock that off of that amount, there's a return on investment or there's not. It just seems like an awful lot of work for a few $1,000s, to chase a few
I want to
$1,000s.
know the costs that are what we would be saving by not sending out those bills. Any answer on that, if there's anything?
That's a treasurer issue.
And the treasurer's not here. Town manager, could you help with that at all?
It's about $400 for each mailing. So if we send it out twice a year, you're talking $800.
Well, now we send the bills out 4 times a year.
So this would be a losing proposition overall. Thank you.
Mr. Dolinsky.
Mr. Moderator, move the question.
Thank you.
That's to cut off debate. All those in favor of cutting off debate, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. On the original motion, and I'm only going to read the short version, that the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54, as printed in the warrant. This requires only a majority vote. If it sounds like I need to make a count, I'll have to do it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. The motion is lost unless somebody wants to challenge it. Mr. Dolinsky. 7 o'clock.
We could be done on Monday.
All those in favor of adjourning till 7 o'clock Monday?
Aye.
Okay. I'll take it.
Everybody, just a quick follow-up note. At 6:45 on Monday, the school building committee will actually our new architect will be here to be introduced and give a brief overview of the project, 15 minutes prior to the start of town meeting. Thank you. Hey, Bob. I'm the police.